from the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoke Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoke Show on 365 Sports with David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
Friday afternoon. Good afternoon. David Smoke, Craig Smoke, 365 Sports. Rez, Logan, Andrew, and Garrett here today doing all of the things that they do to get us up where we need to be, and also stories, segments, and more into various parts of social media. A lot of college spring games this weekend. We're going to look at them. We're going to look ahead to the NFL draft, which is 1 week from yesterday, and so much more, as this is the Smoke Show. Craig Smoke, David Smoke, and we appreciate your time. This is a story from David Ubben from yesterday. David Ubben wrote a story about how, because of the NIL and also the salaries of college football players, and yes, especially quarterbacks or others, some of the other like edge rushers and left tackles, whatever, that because of that, the players who enter the draft are now making less money than they did in college. And there's a quote coming up here from former K-State and Ohio State quarterback Will Howard that struck a nerve with K-State fans. But I never really thought, I know we've discussed that before, but the pay cuts are there, and why you see what Trinidad Chambliss did and others did to try and get another year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a situation where you think that Will Howard would probably be making more in the NFL, but I suppose not. But it's not really that confusing when you realize that as much jarring as it might be, that he was a 6th-round pick versus the quarterback at Ohio State. So, yeah, I mean, when you read that, you think a guy goes to the NFL and what's up, everybody? What's up, chat? You'd think that the NFL would just automatically be more money, but you're a national championship winning quarterback at Ohio State. They paid you probably $3 to $5 million as a going rate as a quarterback and one of the blue chip top premier guys to come to one of the biggest schools that there is. And then you were in the draft, but you were at the back end of the draft where we know that guys almost root to not be drafted because the money's not that good, and they would rather have the freedom to get a better deal at a place where they would rather be when you get into that 6th and 7th round. So I think he ended up okay with the Steelers. It's a great organization to be a part of, but yeah, that wasn't the part that was jarring to me. I think the other part will be what you get to next, because there was a lot of chatter about Will Howard in this interview. But yeah, I mean, that for people that don't realize that, yeah, being the star quarterback at Ohio State pays you more money than being a 6th-round NFL draft pick.
Well, it also pays you more than even being perhaps a 2nd or 3rd round pick, because according to Sport Track, that if in fact Chambliss would have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick coming out in the next week and had been available, because now he's got another year at Ole Miss, his salary would have ranged between $1.2 and $2.35 million. So that is something, and why Joey Aguilar is going to get $2 million if he'd gone back to Tennessee. He's told he can't do that, may not even get drafted. Carson Beck, $3 million by Miami, may not get drafted. If he is, he might get about $1.1 million. Then there's a story about Will Howard. This is a quote. Sam Kahn kind of highlighted this in the David Ubben report. Will Howard bided his time before a big payday. He spent 4 years at Kansas State, started 27 games. His final season, though, incoming Avery Johnson, the freshman, his backup was being paid more. This is the quote from Will Howard. I was a naive kid. I didn't know the nature of myself. I didn't want anything or need money. I said I was good. There were a lot of politics the last year. There were games I was splitting time with him for no reason, and that I knew other than there was money going to him that was not going to me. Last quote, everything I did was on my own. They kind of took advantage of me, got me for cheap, so I decided to go somewhere else, make a little money. It's different when you go to a school and you're the guy getting the money It's amazing how different you're treated. It was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, I mean, it turned him into a guy making millions of dollars or seven figures and a national champion. So from Will Howard's perspective, yeah, I could see where he definitely feels like he made the right choice. And I don't think much can be argued there. I do think what riled people up about this story and about his interview was just the shots at Kansas State and the shots at Kansas State on them looking to kind of pivot and push him out of the way for Avery Johnson. And it's not Kansas State's fault that he didn't want money or need money or anything along those lines. He said, I was a naive kid. I didn't know the nature of myself. I didn't want anything or need money. I said I was good. There were a lot of politics the last year. There were games I was splitting time with him for no reason that I knew other than there was money going to him that wasn't going to me. So that was pretty polarizing comment. He's basically saying, hey, this is my backup. He's this young kid because they're paying him so much money and they're paying him more money than they were paying me, even though I'm the older quarterback. They're basically playing him and splitting time just simply because they're paying him so much more money. And you can see where Kansas State fans would have their feathers ruffled a little bit in regards to that. So then he goes on to say, everything I did was on my own. They kind of took advantage of me and got me for cheap. So I decided to go somewhere else and make a little money. It's different when you go to a school and you're the guy getting money. It's amazing how different you're treated. It was the best decision I ever made, which is what you said. But yeah, Will, that's on you, pal. Like, that's not Kansas State's fault that you weren't a better businessman and you didn't have a better idea of the lay of the land. And maybe had you asked for $3 or $4 million, and maybe if you were in the Avery Johnson ballpark, they would have told you no, or maybe you would have had to work something differently out. But that's not Avery Johnson's problem that he worked a deal and they decided to play him. That's not Kansas State's fault that they said, well, he's not really asking for money. We're not going to go approach him and say, hey, do you want more money than we're giving you? No, we're going to save where we can. If Will's happy and doesn't feel like he needs a boost like other quarterbacks do, then by all means, we'll use that towards Avery, or we'll use that towards a wide receiver, or we'll use that towards something else. So I found these comments kind of odd. Like, I understand where he's coming from, but the dig at Kansas State, I felt was a bit unfair. Now, that ended kind of ugly. I mean, people were ready for him to leave. He wasn't playing his best ball. And look, he got the last laugh because he went off to Ohio State and won a national title. So it worked out for him.
And made a lot of money, too.
It worked out for him.
Yep.
But I don't think that Kansas State necessarily did anything wrong. And it was just kind of an out of nowhere shot that came across yesterday. And I saw a lot of Kansas State fans, as you can imagine, were sort of riled up by this, and were going back over kind of how his career wound down and how Avery Johnson ended up being the guy. And guess what? It wasn't because Avery Johnson was being paid more money. It was ultimately because he was the better option for them. So we'll see how it's going to work out this last year for Avery Johnson and whether they get the return on their investment. Maybe they feel like they already have, although it's been kind of all over the place, his career so far. But very excited about what they've got with Colin Klein and Avery Johnson as a partnership once again. I really feel like they're going to be a better team. I don't know if it'll reflect in like an extravagantly better record. I mean, there's only so many more wins you can add, but I do think just in general, compared to last year when it just sort of always felt like it wasn't quite right for whatever reason, Kleinman's health concerns or dealing with NIL or culture issues or whatever the case might have been, the travel early on in the season, the Johnson family dust up that like started the entire season on a weird note in Ireland. I think that they'll be glad to put that behind them, and I'd expect a much just better overall feel around K-State football this year, and probably a better team as well. But yeah, Will Howard, had he gone off to Ohio State and made all that money but not really done anything, I don't think we'd care too much about his comments, but he did go win a national title. So these are his opinions.
Yeah.
K-State fans don't have to agree, and they certainly don't.
Here's some of the K-State fans in the chat. One of them, please don't mention Will Howard. Oh, damn, you did. From Clarence Banks, stop. Will is butthurt. From Bracket Cat, Will is wrecking his legacy with dumb comments. He played like ass in Stillwater and deserved to get benched for Avery. Avery has the same yardage and touchdowns as Will his first 3 years, but 10 fewer interceptions. Clarence said this as well. Could not handle the breakup. It's over, Will. We are never, ever, ever getting back together. And one final note from Bracket Cat, I think this is it. but he can kiss the Ring of Honor goodbye if that was even an option. We didn't blame him for leaving, but I do blame him for the nonsense.
Yeah, and it wasn't like his career. He was just like the guy. There was never any doubt about that. I mean, and it wasn't like Avery Johnson was the only guy that that was in the mix while Will Howard was there. So yeah, it's definitely not comments I would have taken kindly to as Kansas State fans, and I do wonder how that maybe affects some of the potential accolades or honors he could have received in the future. I don't think he's probably too plussed by it because, again, he went out on a really high note. But, yeah, kind of at least setting the bridge to Manhattan on fire a little bit, not totally roasting it or turning it all to ash where you can't ever walk back over it. But he's definitely charted a little bit. And I think it just is kind of jarring because it's just seemingly sort of out of nowhere. You just weren't expecting, like, Will Howard taking shots at Kansas State 2-3 years after the fact to just jump out in mid-April, but that's where we are. And so it was interesting to see that come across. And I think he'll have some mending to do with some of the K-State faithful moving forward, if that's possible, or if he even chooses to go that route, you know?
Yep. And in Bracket Cat, that wasn't politics. Will, it was performance. Benching
right.
him worked. He finally started to play better with that TCU game, and from there on, the part I always remember about the year that did not go well was the goal line in overtime against Texas when they had the ball at the doorstep, and Texas, they blew up a play at the goal line on fourth down. Howard seemed like he was just all over the place. By the way, having fun with that topic, Kyle Visser in the chat said this to me: Smokey, thank you guys for making me the highest paid NIL poster in the chat. I won't disappoint you guys. So now you all can pout and get mad and whatever else because Kyle Visser's getting most of our money, which is zero, by the way. Kyle, I'm just having fun with that, and I know you are as well. Spring game tomorrow in Cincinnati is going to be moved indoors, so there's not going to be a game. Inclement weather that is in the forecast. The spring showcase game with the Bearcats has been moved indoors and closed to the public. Texas Tech, came down later this afternoon, announced that NC State bought out the 2027 game in Lubbock due to a change because the ACC is going to 9 games. They also announced that to maintain at least 6 home games in 27, they're canceling the game at North Texas and looking now for a power opponent and an opponent to replace North Texas. So what's going to happen with North Texas? TCU picked them up. In 2027, TCU will play North Texas at Amon Carter Stadium.
So, on the TCU North Texas, that'll be a nice little short trip for all involved. And then on the Texas Tech NC State front, check your phone, by the way. But on the NC State front with Texas Tech, this is a product of the ACC moving to 9 games. This is a result of that. So NC State already with a power opponent having to make changes to their schedule and take somebody off. And so in this case, it is Texas Tech, and they'll pivot now and try to find somebody to play. I believe they had already had Kansas State on the schedule, so they were going to play, I believe, K-State and Texas Tech in the same 4-game non-conference schedule. Kansas State, in addition to North Carolina A&T and Louisiana Tech. So, they'll instead of playing Tech have Miami or North Carolina or whoever that will fill that spot. So now we're all at least happy that everybody's on the same wavelength as far as 9 games goes. And for Texas Tech, I do think that when you look at any weak spots in the armor, if you will, like it's certainly not NIL, it's certainly not talent, it's not fundraising, it's not facilities or anything like that. I think where people are going to zero in on them is their schedule. And I think you already see some of that conversation just in regards to the Big 12 compared to the SEC or to the Big 10. And then you see in the non-conference schedule, it's not a lack of effort by Texas Tech. I know one of the first responses will be like, hey, we have Oregon State on the schedule this year, and it's not our fault that they are no longer considered a power conference. And no, that's very true. Like that was intended to be that way, but it's not. So that was kind of out of your control. But beyond this year, there's a lot of vacancies. And you have to go all the way to 2030 to find a team like Arkansas that's on this schedule. And then in 2032 or 2030, 2031, it's Arkansas. And then 2032, there's Washington State. So again, the game that you thought would be different stakes, that the Pac would still be around when you made that. And then 2033 and 2034, it's at Oregon in 2033, then back playing Arkansas again in 2034. So they do have some games scheduled down the line, but these next 3-4 years, they don't have much. They have openings, so they could fill that potentially with a big name school in 2027 or 2028. But for right now, I mean, if they're in the playoff mix and you're comparing them to these teams that are playing big marquee non-conference games, I mean, for Tech, their argument is going to be home games against Abilene Christian and Sam Houston and a road trip to Oregon State. That's not going to stack up well if you're comparing that to going and playing neutral site Atlanta game versus Auburn or something like that, or home and away with Notre Dame or something along those lines. I don't think that it's their fault, but I know they're not going to be given the benefit of the doubt by the committee, that if you start comparing strength of schedules and you're already a bit behind the 8 ball because they don't value your undefeated Big 12 run the same as Texas going 8-1 in the SEC, and then you add in the non-conference, that's where I could see Tech being hurt, like rankings wise. They won't like miss the playoff or anything, but I could see where that would make them, instead of a 4 of 5 or, or 3 of 4 or something along those lines. 2027, all they've got right now is Pine Bluff.
Well, that's not their fault because NC State did pull out. That would have been a nice non-conference game, but that's right. What they have now officially, you're right.
Yeah. So again, because the ACC added this extra game, which is what we're talking about here. So yeah, it's not their fault, but regardless of whether it's their fault or not, people aren't going to sit there and go, well, they just, that was the hand they were dealt. The committee's going to go, this was their non-conference versus what was not their non-conference. So hopefully they can find a suitable opponent in a short amount of time to answer those questions. But I'm just looking ahead at logical arguments to be had, and I already think people are trying to pick them apart because of the conference they play in. And so where could you also try to ding them? It would be in this non-conference where there's not just a big name on there. So I'm sure they're scrambling to try to find somebody, and will do their best to do that. But yeah, they've been affected probably as much, if not more than anybody, by the ACC having to make these pivots.
Indiana's not playing anybody in non-conference. Of course, they ran the table, so it didn't matter. They got in it and then just ran the table and bludgeoned a few people. Next year, this upcoming year, they have North Texas, Howard, and Western Kentucky.
Yeah, that's not great either.
That's not either. And also when teams now are wanting to play 7 and in some cases try to get to 8 home games, that's going to be a way that your schedule may not be as highly rated, or maybe have a nice nugget or a banger on it because of that too, because it's about trying to gain as much revenue as you can get.
And here's the difference. Indiana's won a national championship now. So even if they have these weak schedules, which they do, they've at least shown like, we went into the playoff and we still beat all of these teams, and we blew out Alabama and we beat them emphatically. So I don't think they have to worry as much about like the benefit of the doubt. They're not proving themselves any longer.
No,
they've already
but
done
last
that.
year there was that talk, but now it's over, like you said, because they won it all.
Because they win one.
Yeah.
So if Texas Tech next year has a weak non-conference schedule that's out of their control, but they can't scramble and put something really solid on paper, and that becomes part of the argument against them, well, if they go run the table in the playoff, well, then everybody will shut up. There won't be any argument because you'll have gone and beaten Texas or some combination of Miami and Bama and whoever, and that'll answer all the questions just like it did for Indiana. But yeah, until Indiana did that, that was what you could peck at. And so I think it's not a knock on Tech. It's not their fault, but I'm just looking at it from what I see on a daily basis in regards to the conversation around them from people nationally. And I don't mean just media, but in general, this perception of they play in a lesser conference, they have a lesser non-con now, and they're nothing but a really good team in an average league kind of talk that I see on a consistent basis. They're going to have to go prove that wrong. They're going to have to go win multiple playoff games so that no matter who they play in the non-conference, that quiets that chatter. So yeah, it's like anything else. You win and it answers all the questions for you. But I know they'll try to get somebody good in there and try to bolster that schedule as best they can. But besides that, like, Yeah, there's not a great non-con game on paper that you're lining up to get tickets for right now until they get into that Oregon game.
The fans aren't going to. Fans want a banger too.
Yeah,
they're going to want at least a mid-level or better banger at some point.
But
too.
Indiana's schedule is absolutely atrocious. The difference is that they've already proven though it doesn't really matter because of what they did in the playoff run last year. So if you look at them moving forward, they don't play anybody worth a damn until 2030. I mean, no disrespect to North Texas, but here's Indiana the next 4 years: North Texas, Howard, and Western Kentucky.
I just said that. Yeah, I know. It's a bad schedule. It doesn't get any better.
The next 4 years, So 2027, Kennesaw State, Indiana State, UMass. What is that? 2028, Austin Peay, Eastern Michigan, and Miami, Ohio. Huh? 2029, Ball State, Eastern Illinois, and Western Kentucky. They don't play a single road game for the next 4 years in their non-conference.
Well,
not a single one.
That's another thing.
Not a single power team, not a single road game, not even a neutral site game that I'm noticing, unless there's just on this particular website, they haven't added that information on there. So that is absolutely gross. And if you were Indiana, the team that used to be easily like, who's the worst team in the country year in and year out? Oh, Indiana.
Well, and that's
when they
why.
Were that, well, that's why they had it. Yeah. But now, if they do that for a couple more years, you go, okay. But I think by like 2028, we're going to be going like, dude, y'all got to change the schedule up. Like, this is ridiculous.
I'm going to use an example. How long? 17 years Baylor. I think it was 16 or 17 years. Baylor football they didn't get to a bowl game. They were terrible. Then they started to show some progress when RG3 came back from the injury. Their non-conference schedule hurt them. They almost got in the playoffs in 2014, but didn't because their non-conference schedule was picked apart, and they started increasing that. That was the philosophy they had. They were just trying to get the 6 wins, and then when they got really better, then it was too late to change the non-conference schedule. But if you can do it the way they did it in COVID, you could do it now.
Yeah, and that's precisely my point. Is like I just see that being an issue for them down the line. Now, it won't prevent you from making the playoff because if you go undefeated or you go 11-1, you're going to get in as an at-large or as the Big 12 champ, 12-1. But you can just see where that could be problematic. So here's a solution. How about Indiana sack up, knowing what they are now versus what they were when they were scheduling most of these games. And Texas Tech's got some vacancies. So Indiana, you want to buy out UMass and play Texas Tech? How about that? Let's do that. That would be great for both programs, I feel like. So that's what I'm throwing out there into the ether. Indiana's schedule should be better than it is as a national champion. And Texas Tech has had some wild cards thrown their way with conference realignment changing things. So, let's get Eastern Michigan out of there. No due respect. Let's give them a little side batch of money just for playing and let them go reschedule somebody else. And let's put Indiana and Texas Tech in a home and home in 29 and 30. Like, let's go. Let's do that. You
can't lose from that. You cannot lose from playing that game. By the way, Indiana's conference games, of course, includes Michigan, Ohio State, USC, Washington. But there's a few of those nuggets that are pretty good teams that they do not have on their schedule. Speaking of Texas Tech, how about the Jason Witten Collegiate Man of the Year Award presented last night? Jacob Rodriguez, Texas Tech linebacker. He won a ton of awards, and he won that one too. Great name attached to it. And Jason Witten, who I saw last night, was going to be inducted into the Tennessee Sports Athletics Hall of Fame. Congratulations to Jacob Rodriguez. A week away from being selected either on Thursday late or Friday at some point, and another award for the young man from Tech.
I mean, is this the last one, or there's some more to go?
There's some some of them are announced, and then they have the dinners.
Celebration.
This was the one that was announced. It was announced actually by Witten last night. A little card, picked it out like you do the Academy Awards, and no one knew who was going to win it, and Jacob did win it. Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have much time online last night. I was trying to record some videos. To some level of success or lack thereof, had some technical issues. So we'll see how that goes ultimately. But yeah, I didn't see this. So it is one of those where they announced it on the night of, and that had to be very exciting. I mean, he's deserving of all the hardware. He had an incredible year and was one of the best players in the country, regardless of position. And I'd imagine that he and his wife have had to carve out some more shelf space or create some to hold all the trophies that he's holding. And I know Tech's got a lot of space in their new facilities, and I'm sure they're happy to add some more replicas of what he's won, or even the real deals. Not sure how all that works ultimately, but yeah, he's been as decorated as anybody this offseason, and didn't realize they were still handing out awards. But yeah, I think we're probably wrapping that up, and I don't know what his final count is, but it's an incredible haul that he's put together.
A lot. By the way, our guest today, Zach Barnett, will come up at 3:30. At 4 o'clock, Matt Brown, Extra Points, and also Josh McCuistion, who covers Oklahoma, on the Heineke decision yesterday and how that moves and how they wrap up their spring. We will give you those games in a little bit, the college football spring games this weekend. And then, remember, I played that note, Alabama general manager, on the possibility of a $40 million roster. I really don't believe that. I think we're starting to see just numbers thrown out that just keep getting higher. But Kirk Cignetti, when somebody asked about, I'm almost 100% certain Indiana did not pay $40 million to win a national championship. Craig Cignetti, short and sweet, correct, not even close. And I don't know if there was 15, 20, whatever it might have been, but he did answer the question.
Well, this is where college sports finds itself in a trapping of its own making. You don't want to be transparent about things, but then you get mad when people inflate numbers or go with what is being said, and they run with that like it's the truth because it's all they're really being given. I know that most programs don't want to sit there and specifically say we're paying $32.5 million. I know I saw an interview with Sarkisian on Marshawn Lynch's podcast, and he was talking about how the $20 million thing is bullshit, is basically what he said. And he said, I mean, you think about, and this is coming from a guy who's getting like a $5 million, $7 million, $10 million, whatever you think Arch is worth, discount. Like if Arch wasn't a Manning and he was out on the open market, this kid's getting like $5 million because that's the going rate. I don't think he would get 7 or 10 just based off talent, because the Manning name is what carries some of his allure for sure.
Well, initially, and now the fact that we've now seen him when he's going good, it doubles it up. Yeah.
Right. So that adds on. So he wouldn't be getting $10 million if he was Arch Smith just based on talent alone, because I don't think he's that much better than all the other quarterbacks out there, just straight up play wise, but he'd still be one of the highest rated, highest paid guys. And they're paying him nothing basically. Like, compared to like everybody else paying their starting quarterback, he's not free, but he's basically free in comparison.
And so was Quinn Ewers in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're just going to, like Rajah Bell, so Dia Bell's up next, and Rajah was an NBA star, so maybe they don't have to pay Dia Bell, and they just get pro star sons at quarterback for the rest of their life so they can save a few $1 million every year. That'd be a brilliant strategy if the bloodlines were intact enough to where you could do that every year, and Texas was able to pull all of those guys. But yeah, Sarkisian was scoffing at the idea of 20, and this is a guy who's not even paying his quarterback the going rate that most teams are having to factor in. But he said, okay, you're paying whatever million for a quarterback, and then you got to put an offensive line in front of him, and then you got to put receivers around him. And he was just saying that he was basically calling BS on the price tag. He's also speaking just how difficult it is, and just kind of how messy it all is, constructing these teams and dealing with the money involved. And it is very much like a science. I mean, it would be fascinating to kind of get into some of those rooms and figure out how they decide to dole out, like, here's where we're putting this money and that money. And we know it's different for schools. Like I remember vividly, as most people do, like Ohio State and the big price tag that was being flaunted for them a couple years ago. And then Texas kind of had that last year, and they didn't like it. But yeah, I don't believe every number that's thrown out there. I think some of that's artificially inflated by agents probably, and those who want to see the prices go as high as they possibly can because they stand to benefit. But the colleges don't do themselves any service by wanting it shrouded in secrecy, because if you all were open about it and it was all out front, then everybody would probably stick to more of a number that made sense, as opposed to in the dark, kind of who's really doing what and how much are they really paying, and everybody just going by word of mouth and believing what they want to believe. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I that's kind of where I'm coming from. I
think that he is, if in fact his last name was Smith, I still think he would make a lot of money. But you're right, the Manning lore. Plus, he's making a lot of money that's not even through the House settlement or the salary cap or whatever the hell it is. They got a great steal, and they did with Ewers too. Ewers took advantage of it, and so is Arch. In fact, one of the quotes yesterday in that article from Chris Lowe from Cooper was that he basically told Sark, he's coming to Texas and he doesn't want money. That doesn't mean he's not going to get it. Doesn't mean they don't give him some, but he said he's coming there. And then, of course, he added endorsements immediately.
Yeah, what do you mean about Ewers not getting paid, though?
He got money at Ohio State.
Yeah.
He eventually got money at Texas, but he also got money outside of any kind of – that was his only money he earned.
Well, that's what Arch is getting. He's getting NIL money.
That's right. It's the NIL the way we thought it was going to be used rather than paying people immediately because of their value before they arrive on campus.
Right. I'm just confused by – I was talking about like their specific part of the pool, like putting the salaries together, not what they're making NIL. Because Arch can go make $15 million at NIL. He doesn't need the part of the revenue share money, but some quarterbacks are going to want that. So the difference for Arch and not Ewers, they're not a same comparison, is that Arch is from a affluent family where he didn't necessarily have to have like the $5 million upfront quarterback tag. He could afford to say, no, I'll just eat off my NIL because that's plenty for me. Whereas not every star quarterback's doing that. They're saying, I'm coming from Duncanville. I want $5 million of your rev share, and then I want my NIL. They're not having to do the $5 million part. They're having to just do the NIL, and that saves them several bucks to go and get him better players around him. So that's the unique situation that not everybody's fortunate to have. And that's what I'm talking about with, man, it'd be nice to have guys who are offspring of $1 million athlete families who never want that roster money because they can live off just the NIL money, but that's not every situation. So that's what I was.
And I remember when Ewers mentioned that he turned out $8 million and went into the NFL draft by a program somewhere that offered him a huge amount of money. All right, when we come back, Zach Barnett, his thoughts about the Fox Sports CEO listening to Tony Petitti of the Big Ten about increasing the college football playoff. That does seem like it's inevitable. I'm hoping it's not, but that's kind of where it seemed like. And Fox Sports, of course, would win with that because I don't know how ESPN would be able to cover it all. We'll come back. Zach Barnett has information and his opinion on that. We do too. We hope you're doing well. It's a Friday, and this is the Smoke Show on 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. I called Langdon Brown today. He's the one that set me up with that 2026 Cherokee, Jeep Cherokee, 4x4. Fantastic. I'm going to turn it in after the show today. I said, no, I'm going to keep it another day. He said, man, I've listened to you talk about it. You even mentioned my name. Take your time. It is so smooth. At times I'm driving in that car. The amenities, the luxury, the seating, all of that, which is kind of all in the same vein. It's like I can't hear much of anything. And listen, I know I'm deaf. I got to wear hearing aids on occasion, but it's just like it's like I'm in an airplane, tucked in a little cockpit in an airplane. It's very quiet. It's very nice, smooth drive. So, and it's a hybrid gas. It's like the dual threat, so to speak, where you could put gas in it, and it also is electrical, but you don't have to plug it in. It's weird how it kind of fluctuates between the two. You never seem to have any miles that go down. Like I started driving it 3 days ago with 208 miles, and it's at 202. So I don't know how that works, but it's working. Again, Langdon Brown and all of the staff at Allen Samuels, they've got the great Ram trucks, always awarded annually for what they do. Jeep Cherokee, Jeep Grand Cherokee, and also the Jeep Wagoneer. A really nice lot of pre-owned cars, too. It's Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
It's my go-to guy. Can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Do you have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf car batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
We're celebrating the Declaration of Deals at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. Cash in on $11,000 off a new Ram 2500 Lone Star Crew Cab, or choose 0% for 36 months, plus no payments for 90 days. Feel secure with America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels.
Come by, let's be friends.
are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
You got batteries for my side-by-side?
Yes.
Replace my flashlight?
Sure thing. What about my business?
Oh, good one.
100%. Batteries for my fleet of trucks?
Gas floor scrubbers?
Yes, and fire panels. We have pallets of batteries.
Well, what about...
As your go-to guy, if it needs a battery, we have it.
Well, that's all you had to say.
Could have led with that.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
Here we go on this Friday. David Smoke and Craig Smoke in the TFNB Your Bank for Life studios on 365 Sports. Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com, joins us most every Friday, today by his cell phone. And Zach, thank you very much for your time. I noticed the response you had yesterday. It was from the Blitz. People can complain all day long, but a bigger postseason field is going to happen in college football, men's basketball. It's inevitable. And you responded, when people say something like this is inevitable, what they're really saying is I've given up before even attempting to fight back. Go ahead and give us more and elongate that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this is a college football thing, and it's also a human nature thing. You look at they tried to start the European Super League over across the pond, and the fans said no, and then the suits said, yeah, I guess this was a bad idea. We won't do it. Here in America, the suits tell us that they want to do something, and all of us just kind of lay down and take it. So the idea that college football expansion, and it's probably going to happen, but still, they've told us it's inevitable, so we just accept that it's inevitable, and it doesn't have to be this way. You look at Live Golf with literally all the money in the world. They're shutting down. They were going to take over golf. Now that's about to be a thing of the past because the fans did not want it. So, I mean, I say all this. I'm not trying to portray myself as some civil rights revolutionary or anything like that. I'm maybe a college football civil rights activist, if you want to say that, if you even want to go that far. But I do feel a responsibility to use my platform, what I have, to come out and say that this is turning college football, the 2014 playoff, into something that it's never been before. And the idea that a 7-5 Iowa team is suddenly qualified to compete for a national championship, I don't accept that. I'm not going to stand up and take it just because the CEO of Fox Sports tells me that I should.
So, Zach, you mentioned Live Golf. I've had the idea and have talked about it a little bit over the past week of why that should be a major wake-up call. And we'll see what the true story is because they're still pushing back like, no, we're funded through 26, and it's not quite dead, but that's where a lot of arrows are pointing. But I propose that it should serve as a pretty massive wake-up call to college sports leaders who are kicking around the idea of private investment, private equity. I know they weren't talking about necessarily dealing directly with the Saudis and the public investment fund, but it does go to show you that somebody, even with the most blank of blank checks, can be affected by like a war or a shutdown of a strait or things completely out of your control globally. So at some point, even the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is like, we're losing too much money on this thing that we didn't care about losing money about, and now we're just going to just abruptly shut it down. Do you think that's kind of on pace? Like, if you're college leaders, like, sure, go forward into private investment, but hopefully this serves as somewhat of another reminder when you do go down that road.
Yeah, I think if you sell yourself out to money, money always has the right to change its mind. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's easy to balance a budget if you're at a Big 12 school or an ACC school or anything like that. And the money that you've got to pay to your players is real, it's substantial. It's not getting any lower anytime soon. But at the same time, if you're an AD of anywhere in college athletics, you get into it with the idea that your tennis program, your swimming program is not just as important as your football and your basketball, but they have a place at the table along with your revenue sports. And I don't think anyone in private equity probably does not agree with that. And so if you take private equity's money, at some point, it's not going to be next week or next year, but at some point they're going to come to you and say, yeah, this tennis program, this cross-country program, this doesn't really work for us. You need to shut it down.
What are your thoughts? The Learfield buy, which was about a week ago, and they were already involved there was a private equity business, and now there's going to be another one. So really, is it just basically the way it is now? That's the way it's going to be?
Yeah. The people that are much more tied into that part of the world than I do are not freaking out, so I'm not going to freak out. And I will say, the Varsity Network, the app that Learfield has been awesome, and it's free. You can get nearly any game on the radio for free, streamed right through your phone, and I use it all the time. So that has been good. So as long as the new private equity overlords don't touch that app, I think I'm happy.
Zach, Owen Heineke, a win in court for Oklahoma, and he'll be able to play next year, an extra year. Had the whole argument about being a lacrosse player for 3 appearances, 15 minutes total, and then walking on to Oklahoma. Like, what did you think of that? I guess kind of all these eligibility cases that are swirling. Like, how top of mind or interested in that aspect are you? And when it comes to Heineke, any thoughts on just this big win for OU and kind of the argument that they made? And did you see it as just that he's getting this extra year because lacrosse for 15 minutes shouldn't burn an entire year of eligibility?
I'm pretty anti-waiver. I would not, if it was up to me, I would not have granted his waiver, even as sympathetic to his case as I am. But they tried this case in Oklahoma, so find me an Oklahoma judge that's an elected official that's going to rule against the Sooners there. I did find it amusing that Brent Venables and Jim Nagy took the stand. Just the idea that those guys in suits sitting in a witness stand, whether a kid could play football or not, is funny to me. I think the NCAA moving to a 5-to-play-5 model hopefully gets rid of this stuff. But I do think I see why Oklahoma went to the mat to get him, because I was reading Dane Brugler's 7-round mock just earlier this week, and he had Owen Heineke going in, I believe, the 4th round. So the idea that you get a kid that's good enough to go at that level, get him back on your team, that's going to help a defense that's going to frankly need help at the linebacker position next season.
Zach, there was audio from the Alabama general manager that we had yesterday, and others have played. And we're starting to see these estimates of a football roster at 20, 25, and then even yesterday, 40 million. How much of this is now complete speculation that people are just now throwing it out? Or do you truly think there's a football roster that's going to get to that level, at least for this season?
Oh, 100 million, no. I think if you were the general manager at an SEC program, I think it behooves you to say that your competitors are paying way much more than you are. You're not hardly ever, maybe Texas Tech. That's probably the only program in college football that's going to come out and brag about how they're spending more than everyone else in their conference. Everyone else is spending more than you. Everyone else's players make more than you. That's that's the way poker is played in college football. I think the idea, hopefully the idea of all this being unsustainable, that you saw a lot of talk of that in 2022, 2023, it seems like it's sustaining just fine. Even this time last year, we were talking about people front-loading contracts to get out in front of rev share. And then now that money is that people made in 2025 has become standard in 2026. So the idea that donors are going to get tired and the money is going to make sense again, quote unquote, I don't see that happening. But $100 million, maybe in time, but not anytime soon.
So a bunch of spring games this weekend. I know everybody's kind of got their different flavor of how much they care or don't care about spring games, but has there been anything on-field football that's caught your interest as of late?
To be honest, really not a whole lot. With the seasons getting so long as they are, you're not really seeing guys that are going to play significant roles. No one's going to put a starter at risk in spring football, especially now that you can do more in the summer. Soon, camp's going to start earlier now that week 0 beginning next season is going to become week 1. So, I mean, I'll pay somewhat attention this weekend, but I really have not put a whole lot of stock in anything that I've seen or heard happening on the field this spring.
So you did a project over to take up your time while you're not focusing on that like a lot of people, but you had a project where you put together the highest ranked recruit from all 50 states, and it was really interesting to go and kind of look through this. But kind of tell us where the idea originated and what did you learn, or what did you maybe discover, or what did you rediscover in putting this thing together?
I think I have no explanation for where the idea came from, other than that's just how my mind works. Maybe my favorite example. It was really hard to find the highest rated recruit in Maine, in Vermont, and New Hampshire. Believe it or not. So the highest rated recruit ever out of Maine may not have even existed. I could find no record of him ever actually playing college football. The highest rated recruit from Vermont was actually from Massachusetts, but just played at a Vermont prep school. But the highest rated recruit ever from New Hampshire actually did exist. He's an actual human being that exists. And I found him on LinkedIn, and he returned home and now works as a tech recruiter. So here in Texas, we've had 6 guys, excuse me, including the last 2 that have been the number 1 recruit ever, or the number 1 recruit in their class, excuse me. And then you go up to New England and you got to really, really dig. I think the most interesting thing that I learned was that I think Jadeveon Clowney has an argument, a really strong argument, for the top prospect in football history, the internet era of football. 6 guys have gotten a perfect 1,000 score, the 24/7 composite. He's one of the 6. 2 guys have been the number 1 recruit and the number 1 draft pick, and he's the only guy to do both.
Oh, wow, that's it. Yeah, I mean, and I'm thinking while you're saying that of just what the Clowney hype was like, and I do remember that. It was very unique and very, very much not like how you treated every number 1 prospect every year. I'm just trying to think, too, while we're talking out loud, of like who was like even a close comparison, do you think? Like Vince Young, was he that? I'm trying to think as far as
what again? What are you trying to compare to?
The most hyped overall recruit of all time. So yeah, Jadeveon Clowney was definitely up there. Who is there? Anybody else that comes to mind that you think of that's in that even same comparison?
Going back through it was interesting because I discovered Kevin Jones. Remember him, the running back? He was a big time recruit back in his day in 2001. He's kind of had ceremony. I think Bryce Brown. For anyone who's not familiar, sorry about that. For anyone who's not familiar with his story, I would encourage you to go look him up. His story, his recruitment was a trip and a half.
Oh yeah, yep. But Kansas State fans in the chat know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Vince Young was highly recruited, but there still was debate, and at the time it made sense with Reggie McNeil out of Lufkin at the same time. But I would think that Adrian Peterson, obviously, as far as Palestine. I went back and I just randomly looked up the state of Alaska, Zach, and the highest rated recruit was not Mark Schlereth, but he did get to the NFL as one of the rarities to do that from the state of Alaska. I just thought that was pretty cool.
I was today years old when I learned that Mark Schlereth is from the state of Alaska.
Yeah, I know.
Just before my time as a prospect.
You learned, young man, you learned that. Final thing, is there I love what I'm hearing from Alex Golesh at Auburn. Not sure how it's going to, I guess, materialize. I love what I'm hearing from even Pete Golding, although he's had a little bit of a head start because of the playoff run. Your thoughts about either one of those two guys and the fit at where they are at two places that it's very hungry and thirsty because they expect to win, although Auburn hasn't won in almost 6 years.
Yeah, I would bet on Ole Miss ahead of Auburn this past season, but I'm longer on Golesh than I am on Golding. The history of promoting the interim is not kind to Pete Golding, particularly when it was a first-time head coach that's a defensive-minded head coach. The idea for a guy in Golding's position, and maybe he'll be different, but your entire career has been, I have to protect my defense. I got to get these guys off the field. Well, the SEC, Art Briles has revolutionized the SEC. It's a pace and space, hear and shoot conference. And you're not going to win games 17-13. And so, obviously, Pete Golding saw that himself with the success that he had, that Ole Miss had with Trinidad Chambliss. And fortunately, he hasn't back this season. But it's difficult for a defensive-minded head coach to not just protect his defense and try and score points to win games rather than just try and limit opponents to win games. I think Golesh, Auburn I think 6 wins this season would be a success for Auburn, but in the long term, I think he'll get the most out of what that program has to offer moving forward.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com, with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to take a trip down memory lane with that recruiting list that he put together of the top prospects ever. I just randomly scrolled down and stopped just at the most random point that I could. Louisiana, number ones 3 times. You had Joe McKnight back in 2007, number 1 overall prospect. I remember that vividly. Leonard Fournette, 2014. Remember that vividly. And then Arch Manning, number 1 recruit in the country 2 years ago, or I guess 3 years ago now, but Joe McKnight to USC, Leonard Fournette to LSU, and then Arch to Texas. But yeah, there's Maine. He mentioned that. And there's some caveats here. So for Maine, it makes mention that there's another guy, but it gets confusing, of where they actually are from. Like he said, with the one example of the guy's actually from Massachusetts, but he's crossing the state line to play in Maine or whatever kind of deal. So, but pure Maine guy, the highest ranked recruit ever was Alexander Marshall, a tight end who was number 496 overall in 2017. So it's cool to look through that. And everybody's got somebody listed here. Texas obviously has a good number of guys. Vince Young in 2002, Adrian Peterson in 2004, Mario Edwards in 2012 went to FSU.
Denton Ryan, yeah.
Quinn Ewers in 2021, Keshawn Henderson, go Cougs. Can't wait to see what he ends up doing, but he was number 1 last year. And then Jalen Brewster for 2027, Wreckham, Texas Tech commit. So, the last couple of years, looks like if Brewster follows through on signing with Texas Tech, that both the top prospects in Texas or number 1 overall guys out of Texas will be staying around the Big 12. But it's fun to look through. Like Virginia, Percy Harvin, number 2 back in 2006, was their highest ranked recruit of all time. And yeah, he's one of those guys that also belongs in that. I don't know, for somebody like me who's at this point in life where the early 2000s were the bread and butter of being in my late teens, early 20s. And that's really when I think a lot of people started following recruiting very closely and was on the message boards all the time and was paying attention to guys in the area and really cared about that sort of thing a great deal. Reading names Vince Young, obviously, but Percy Harvin and Leonard Fournette and some of these guys. It's a trip down memory lane for sure. So you can check that out on Football Scoop. It's just cool to kind of roll through. Give me a random state. I'll tell you who's on here.
All right, guys, in the chat room and girls in the chat room, give us a random state and Craig will say who has been the number one overall recruit in the country in high school football. Just throw it out there. I'll do one.
Or their highest. Yeah.
Bijan was from Arizona, but I doubt he was the highest rated recruit, but Arizona.
No, he was not the highest rated recruit. Bijan was like a top 15 guy. So it was Keely Ringo, who went to Georgia in 2020.
I remember him.
He was the number 4 overall prospect. So Arizona's highest rated recruit of all time was Keely Ringo, number 4 overall. Idaho would be Kevin Albott. OBOT, Kelvin Obot, just from this year, actually, number 21 overall recruit in the country. And the other guy is Gatlin Bear. He is, okay, hold on. Sorry. Obot is the only, don't dip your head. I'm trying to read through this. It's a lot of information.
No, it is confusing.
Well, because it jumps around a little bit. It starts by saying the 2 highest ranked recruits in Idaho history will both be true freshmen this fall. Wow. Obot is the only consensus 5-star to ever hail from Idaho. So it's him. While wide receiver Gatlin Bear, the number 43 recruit in 2024, starts his career for Oregon this fall. So you can see where that's confusing because they're from different years, but they're both starting as freshmen this year. So, yeah, Gatlin Bear was 43, but Kelvin Obot, who will play at Utah as a true freshman this year, the highest-ranked Idaho recruit of all time.
Kansas.
All right. Got to search and find here. I think that would be Bryce Brown. Yeah, Bryce Brown.
All right.
Number 2 overall, signed with Tennessee. And K-State fans, I swear it's not pick on K-State fan day with the Will Howard quotes, and we didn't even get into all those, by the way. Like he talked a bit further, but the point was he was just kind of taking shots and whatnot. But yeah, Bryce Brown, number 2 overall. I remember vividly as an Oklahoma fan who was tracking the recruitment of the Brown brothers, and K-State fans were very much in the mix there. I want to say Miami was there. Obviously, Tennessee's where Bryce ended up signing. But his brother Arthur, who was a badass linebacker, I remember his recruitment before Bryce's. But yeah, Bryce, highest ranked recruit in Kansas history, originally planned to join big brother Arthur at Miami, but says, how should we say this? His recruitment was eventful. Brown's trainer tried to cut the recruiting services out of the process and profit off his client's recruitment by selling updates online. God, that just unlocked a memory I forgot that existed. Brown signed 6 weeks after signing day, naming 5 finalists despite being committed to Miami. He signed with Lane Kiffin for 1 season at Tennessee. I'm sure that was completely clean recruitment. And then transferred alongside Arthur to K-State, sitting out 2010 as was required. He played 1 season at K-State, entered the draft early, was a 7th-round pick, and totaled 251 carries across 4 seasons. Now, that's a guy where he would have made an S-ton of money if it were this modern-day era. He also would have had the messiest recruitment of all time because there's way more coverage, and it was the messiest back then, and there was a ton of coverage. But compared to now, like he would have been doing TikTok videos while visiting like Tennessee while committed to Miami 6 weeks after National Signing Day or whatever. It would have been complete madness.
All right, one more. We got a bunch of states, and thanks for those of you who put states out there. We're not going to get to all of them. Colorado. Old Barn Cat got K-State.
Yeah, Colorado would be Marcus Houston, running back in the class of 2000. He was the number 5 overall recruit in the year 2000. Opened as true freshman as Colorado's starting running back, but battled injuries and ultimately finished at Colorado State. So
Michigan,
not much of a write-up on.
We'll do one more. Michigan.
Bryce Underwood.
Oh, okay.
Number 1 player in the country a year ago, 2025's top recruit, highest paid recruit on the list. Zach mentions he was the it gets into he was a 94th rated passer as a true freshman for an underwhelming Michigan offense. And so it's more about we don't know quite yet on Bryce Underwood, but yeah, it was him.
All right. I went to Wyoming. That's where Josh Allen went, but he's from California, and then eventually played with the Cowboys and eventually with the Bills.
Wyoming, that's Taven Bryan. was the one that
Okay.
got listed
All right.
there.
All right.
But yeah, I think if you want to go check that out for yourself, because there's still like 30 something more states, then you can go to
Footballscoop.com. Yep, that's the name of the site. Thanks to Zach Barnett. Matt Brown comes in to try to help clarify all the whatever it is going on in college athletics and a couple of projects he's in the middle of. And he also has retooled part of his website with the library, the archives. That and more. This is 365 Sports. Ideal. MRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in Waco, where you, if you have a doctor, he or she, and they want a better look of what is causing you pain, that maybe shuts you down, can't function the same, can't sleep well. You got to roll from one side to the other because it's always hurting, whether it's your shoulder, your back, your leg, your knee, or what. Ideal MRI. Get the doctor to call in a referral. They will call you. They'll be in touch with you. They'll set up an appointment. And when you get there, it is a very simple appointment. I have never waited more than 5 or 10 minutes when I've gotten there. I have never had to wait for 25 people like around me. It's pretty simple, and they are busy from start to finish, but it's very efficient. State-of-the-art imaging machine. Texan specialists are fantastic. Last time I went in there, they gave me a pair of headsets like this one, wireless, and they said, "What do you want to hear?" Because I don't want to hear that. You've ever been in an MRI machine? It makes a lot of noise. And so I said, anything classic rock, whether it's Journey, Styx, Foreigner, just play it loud and keep playing it. And it's been a very simple, I'm very claustrophobic, but not when I go inside that machine, because those guys and girls do a great job. And it's $400 at $97 or less every single time at idealmri.com.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Join the celebration. It's 27 years for Richard Carr Motors, and we're celebrating with big anniversary savings.
The GMC Sierra delivers strength, power, and a refined interior loaded with premium comfort and technology. During Richard Carr's 27th anniversary sale, find savings like $9,000 off all Sierra 1500 Pro and SLE models in stock.
Thank you, Central Texas, for 27 years. Log on, call, or come by today to find big anniversary savings now.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
It is the Smoke Show with Craig and David Smoke. We do appreciate you every afternoon. We start at 3, and here we are starting the 4 o'clock hour in one of our most informative and just a wealth of knowledge in Matt Brown from Extra Points. He joins us on 365 Sports. Matt, a lot to get to. You've been very busy. I've watched your feed. I love the feed. I get the newsletter. I had a question for you. With the thought of any kind of player compensation, collective bargaining, all of the things that are up in the air right now, schools don't want it, right? The NCAA, I don't think, do they want it? They've fought that before. Has anyone asked the players if they want it?
It's a good question, right? And you get different answers depending on what kind of player you're talking about. We talk about collective bargaining right now. It's interesting that I think the voices that are usually the loudest promoting this as a solution to what's some of the quote unquote problems in college athletics right now, those voices tend to be the loudest from coaches. They tend to be increasingly from athletic directors and from attorneys around this world. You don't see it as much with athletes. There are certainly some that support it, but what it means to be an employee, which you need right now in order to have collective bargaining, means something different if you're a starting quarterback at Texas Tech, or a backup tight end at Baylor, or a softball player at Trinity, right? Or Sul Ross, or some Division II or Division III school, or a low-level Division I school. It speaks to one of the huge challenges in trying to solve any of these issues. College athletes are a huge group. Huge groups are very difficult to organize and mobilize. And even if you limit that to just Power 4 football players or FBS football players, even there's huge differences between people who are definitely going to make the NFL and people who definitely aren't. I don't think anyone's really come close to securing enough players to be able to credibly say we speak for them right now. Athletes.org is probably the closest thing we have, and they're still have yet to organize half of the available athletes.
Matt, you touched on the Learfield story that was out there this week. I don't want to ask about that just yet. I know we probably will, but in your kind of tease, you mentioned that private equity is already in college football. And I was looking at the story surrounding Live, and we still don't know what's going to happen there, although we kind of see what's going to probably happen there. And it had me thinking about the crossover with college football. Now, the Saudis aren't invested in the Big Ten right now or anything like that, but there is a lot of private money that's being sought after and looked into of all different kinds. And the Big 12 Redbird deal is a little bit different than the Big Ten and UC Investments type of deal. But do you feel like Live should serve as a warning sign that even those who seemingly have no end of money are still affected by outside factors and could pull the plug at any moment?
I mean, this is a good point, right? Like, I feel a lot of sympathy to people that write into Extra Points or holler at me on social media about, what are you doing bringing politics into my college football? Why are you talking about this other stuff? We just want to talk about football. And I get that. I love talking about football too. But we live in an interconnected world where things that happen in other markets or in other countries or with state actors here can absolutely impact global finance and thus what happens within college athletics. Typically, if you're signing some kind of deal with an institutional investor, whether that's the Saudi sovereign wealth fund or the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund or a gigantic private equity firm or a pension fund or anybody else, in that deal, you're going to get some level of guarantee that, okay, this money is going to be here for X amount of years, and these are the warning signs that I should get if we're going to pull out of that investment early, or metrics that we're tracking. So these things don't happen as surprises, but they can happen. And unexpected things in the world can change all kinds of deals. I know, to bring it back here to Learfield for a second, part of the reason that the company had some struggles over the last couple of years was after COVID. Well, who could have possibly predicted COVID? Like that's not an easy thing to come up with. But if we have a year where we don't have football, or we have limited football and limited fans involved in football, and your ticket sales go off of a cliff, well, that completely nukes the relationship that you're going to be able to have for multimedia rights and for commercial sponsorship sales, which makes it hard to make the money back on some of these longer term deals. You always have to be thinking about what's the worst case scenario. And it's part of why I am skeptical and very conservative about institutional investment coming directly into college sports. That's already a pretty weird fit given who owns and operates these programs. What you're talking about there with Live Golf, I think that is a pretty good example of stuff that you think won't impact golf, like geopolitical tensions in Iran. Absolutely can.
Yeah, and then how oil gets in and out to various countries and all of what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, I saw your response to a guy that I think somebody brought up estimates on a $60 million football roster, which I do not believe, Matt, in any way, shape, or form. Then you mentioned Clemson and Florida State and football, and they don't generate enough to even cover that in the first place. Then somebody said, you need to learn how college sports really works. And you went, okay.
Yeah.
How much of this now is just getting to be silly, the numbers that are being thrown out?
It's really frustrating to me. And I say this not because I'm trying to directly criticize Pate or anybody at On3 or anybody that's in the business of talking to coaches or GMs. Because I believe if a GM says, oh yeah, we're going to have 60 million rosters and maybe 100 million rosters, I believe a GM said that. And I might even believe a GM thinks that. There's no incentive at all for any kind of GM, or for that matter, coach or assistant coach, to get in front of a microphone and say, yeah, I think we're probably in the top 20% of budgets. And I think we're in a good place financially. You have every incentive to think, oh my God, everyone else is spending so much more. I need more money. I can tell you last year, the year that, Indiana won the national championship, you saw their coach saying, we didn't spend $40 million. I don't believe they spent $30 million. I based on the estimates that I feel comfortable with, a low 20 range for Indiana last year sounds about right. And nobody really spent more than low 30s last year. I can believe that with the way that athletic costs, particularly for labor, are going up, that we'll see multiple 40 million roster teams for this coming football season. I think that's believable, even though there's going to be a lot of teams that aren't close to that number that are going to make the college football playoff and could potentially win it. But 60 or 100, I think we have to be real, right? Like I know it's fun to joke about how money isn't real when we talk about these kind of projections here, but you can't move up to player compensation levels that are bigger than what the athletic department itself is generating. There's not going to be enough donor money to do that unless everybody has 20 Cody Campbells, and they don't.
Matt, where do you feel like, because there's so many things we can look at and go like, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. Where do you feel like they've made positive strides over the last 3 or 4 years? And hopefully there is an answer to that question.
No, that's a great question. That's a great question. I think that athlete medical care has gotten better over the last 4 or 5 years. I think it is smart that more schools are moving some of their trainers and some of the medical personnel that are watching practices or games, that those folks increasingly don't report to coaches. They report to independent parties or elsewhere in the university. And I think while we're not perfect, I think it is the college football has evolved in a world where people are more likely to get better concussion care now than they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. And I hope that trend continues. I think that's getting better for other kinds of injuries. I still think that it's better for athletes to get some compensation than virtually nothing, which we know over the last over the last 10 years, when that was the case. And I think some conference realignment decisions that have happened throughout all of college sports, not obviously the Big Ten expanding into the Pacific time zone, but maybe some more things that have happened here locally, will create a better experience for fans. I think if I was a fan of a Southland Conference team, I'm probably more excited to be playing more Texas institutions than I am Utah or California or Seattle or some of the places that you were doing here before. There are positive things to find in college sports right now. It's easy to talk about how we're lurching from one unmitigated crisis to another, and those things do exist. But I really do believe there are positive things happening at the macro and micro level.
I like the idea, at least the idea of 5 years and play 5 years or whatever it is. But there are still going to be bullet holes. There's the grandfather clause. How is that, in your opinion, going to work? And do you feel like that just seems to be,
somebody's just going to have to not get what they want.
Yeah, and which, of course, then they'll sue. But I like that idea. I'm not so sure they shouldn't have started that 20 years ago.
I think you're right. And I can't speak to exactly how this will be implemented or defended in court yet, because I haven't seen the exact language, and that's still being circulated right now. But I do think generally, if we move away from an eligibility standard that is so centered on waivers and centered on extenuating circumstances and move towards something that will be more clear for more people, I think it's a positive. My understanding is like the only kind of 3 exceptions that for the 5 and 5 would be for individuals doing religious missions, like Latter-day Saints at BYU or Utah and Arizona and other places there, where you might end up being in school a little bit older, people that are involved in military service, and people that had babies. Women that had babies and have maternity leave might not be able to play. And those 3 groups don't impact a lot of athletes. I think most fans, I mean, not everybody, I think most fans would say, yeah, I think we could give a special exception to somebody who served our country in the armed forces and had their athletic career interrupted. And I think that would be a positive thing. The idea of here are the rules, and then here are the rules if you lawyer up, that's not tenable for anybody. And I think it's really frustrating for fans and certainly the people that run this sport.
So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you have an article up now on the front of your website, and it's talking about the Learfield TPG deal. I don't want to steal your thunder there because I want people to go and read that. But what, I guess, when you saw that news stood out to you is why that was of interest and newsworthy for people out there who are college sports fans?
So that's a great question. I think for me, Learfield is one of the largest and most impactful companies that touches college sports. That's not a conference or a school itself. Not just because of the multimedia rights and sponsorship work that they do, which is so important for schools' bottom lines, but the intellectual property for Baylor that ends up in the EA Sports video game. It's facilitated through CLC. That's part of Learfield. The being able to buy a comfortable T-shirt with the vintage logo on it, or buy a school an official beer, that's run through Learfield. Radio through Learfield. Like if you're a fan, you might not care that much about like dynamic ticket pricing or some of the other more esoteric stuff that schools do. This is one of the more forward-facing companies, and it's sold for $2 billion, which, given the revenue that Learfield does right now, seems a little bit high. So I think this is an interesting story to follow along. If you're a reporter or business nerd that cares a lot about how money comes in and out of schools, this is important. But I think it's also important because this is one of the few companies that you might interface a little bit with here. If you're a fan and you'll be in your interest to know, is anything dramatic going to change? Is this going to make my experience worse? Will this add new things for me? These are reasonable questions to ask, I think.
Matt, you saw the story about Cal Athletics, right? They're laying off 25 people, marketing, media relations, whatever. I hate that. I hate any layoffs. I know that it happens. I know it's part of business. I hope people get bought, et cetera. But they're so spread thin because they have to go to the ACC. They didn't have to, but they're in the ACC. But I hate it for those people because then someone's going to still write a check for a couple of $1 million to help Cal basketball or football, aren't they?
Sure. I'm troubled by it too, right? Especially because these communication jobs, these are not the jobs that pay $400,000. These are you don't work in university marketing or video creative, any of those things to get rich. I hate for anybody right now, whether you're in California or Texas or Delaware or anywhere. I hate to see anyone lose their health insurance or be put in a position where it's tough to find a gig right now. I'm also troubled because I don't think that the core thesis that Cal is trying to do, which is how can we turn our communications department into something that generates revenue rather than serves as a cost center. I don't think that's going to work. And I think that's the wrong way to think about these kind of gigs. Certainly being an SID and working in university athletic communications is a different job than it was 10 years ago. And we don't need, we being, everyone across Division I, we don't need a bunch of people to write game summaries for events that nobody was paying attention to. And there are certainly tasks that can be automated. But I think this idea that you can replace a lot of those personnel and build some kind of marketing agency to make glossy sponsored content or promotional things for a school that's already struggling a lot to get attention and oxygen in a pro sports market, and with the athletic department that's been kind of irrelevant in major sports for the last decade, I don't think that's going to work out. And I understand the thought process. I understand wanting to do something different. I feel bad for the people that worked in that department and for people that love and support the Cal Bears, and for anyone else where this might be replicated. These mass layoffs happen. It was at Mississippi State not that long ago. It's happened elsewhere in the ACC. I think it's a mistake.
I was surprised, and I did not read the whole thing, so that's my fault, but I pulled it out because I knew you might be able to help. The University of Oregon president sent out a budget letter. Yeah. And in that letter, of course, enrollment's a huge deal, and that's a very hip, popular, you would think, thriving university. But enrollment seems to be down or flattened out. At Oregon, how could that be possible?
I need to do some more digging into this one specifically, but there are states that might surprise you where enrollment is down. And part of this is just about American population. A lot of more blue states, here where I live in the Great Lakes and in the Northeast and even a little bit in the Pacific Northwest, the population's been declining. People are not having as many kids. Not as many of those kids are then graduating high school and pursuing a 4-year education at an American institution, or they're moving somewhere else. And in Texas, this is usually less of an issue. I'm sure there are institutions that are still struggling with this, but because so many people are moving here, the regional and flagship public institutions are generally okay. But even in Montana, a state that's growing, the flagship institution is struggling here with enrollment. And I don't look at that. I think it's unlikely this is a sports story so much, but it does, I think, speak to how sports alone aren't going to bail a university out of some of these challenges. There's some really big, sometimes existential challenges in American higher ed right now. Some of them directly impact college sports, some of them not always. But making the college football playoff and having a dynamite baseball team and a brand that's recognizable all over the country, those things aren't necessarily enough if there's just not enough people in suburban Portland who are sending kids to American state universities.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I know you'll get to it, and I brought that up because I'm sure you're already on it, and you had an answer, and I appreciate you doing that. Thank you, buddy, for all of that you do. Love your content, love the newsletter, and appreciate it when you can jump on the show.
You bet. Have a wonderful rest of the show and a great weekend, fellas. I'll catch up with you guys later.
Points on 365 Sports, and I'm never afraid to ask him anything when it comes to sports business, like when we do Amanda Kristovich and others. Like we have Ben Portnoy on Monday from the Sports Business Journal on a couple of things he's written. I don't know where I would be. Probably just wouldn't care, wouldn't want the answers, just read it and go, okay. But he is so deep into that, especially the business and budgets of sports.
Well, I know you're just using a phrase there, but you should never be afraid to ask Matt Brown anything.
No, I'm not. That is a phrase. I just say it. I have
just
never
sports business. Yeah. It's not like that big a deal, but
not like copperheads on a golf course.
I mean, it's nothing dangerous or anything scary to ask, but I get what you mean, I guess. And it's not a topic that I was super invested or interested in at the beginning of all this sort of, I guess, NIL era, but it is a big part of things now. And I think there are a lot of things that are interconnected that if you read the tea leaves, kind of see which direction things are blowing, get an idea of what the future holds, although a lot of it is still very uncertain. But it's all, again, it's interwoven now. And you may not like NIL, but it doesn't matter. It's not going anywhere. You may not like realignment. Doesn't matter. It's not going anywhere. You may not like certain facets of it, but it all does come together as part of the same package. And when we're talking about a specific sport, at least for a couple of hours every day, you're inevitably going to get into the weeds on business and things of that nature. And I've grown to find it more interesting, like this whole Saudi Live Golf thing. So apparently I did like 2 smoke break videos that took me forever. And then Garrett walks up to me and is like, hey, the video freezes on both of them. So he's going to cook up something where you're just going to get audio. I'm sorry. I recorded them. They're there. They can be seen, but they like freeze at the same moment on each one. And one of them, I do talk about the Live Golf thing and its comparison to college sports, just because not so much like the Big 12 and Redbird Capital, because that does seem like it's more of a loan. Not to say that Redbird won't expect the money that you take from them back. And it's one of those where you can take up to $30 million if you want to. it's configured differently than just like the typical private equity sort of thing. So if you're Iowa State and you don't want to take any money, you don't have to. If you want to take $5 million, you can. Now, the terms of how you pay all that back, that's not all public knowledge, but it's not like we're giving you $100 million and we need a return on investment in like 2 years, or it's not that kind of a play either. But there's all sorts of different deals. And like in particular, the one with Utah, where they've gone out on their own, this Otro Capital, and they're doing their very own thing with them, separate from the Big 12. That's going to be really interesting to follow, because either Utah's on the forefront and a bunch of other people are going to follow suit because they see them making money and doing it on their own and being able to feasibly do it, or it's going to be really ugly. And I can hear you talking in my ear. Yeah. Or it's going to be really ugly, and they are going to be the poster child of this is where private investment can go wrong in college sports. It remains to be seen. They might be brilliant. They might be the example of how it all works and makes sense. And so then Michigan decides, well, we're going to do it too. And Texas Tech decides, you know what, we got a bunch of money, but we could always use more. We're going to do it too. Even though Cody Campbell, I believe, is not a fan of the private equity in college sports, but whoever you want to use as an example. And then there's always a chance that if it doesn't work, what does that look like for Utah athletics? If they gave, and because with their thing too, it's not just give us money and we give it back to you. It's like, give us money and you're going to help us with our ticket sales, and you're going to help us with promotions, and you're going to help us with licensing, and you're going to help us with advertising. But guess what Otro Capital also gets? They get some of the ownership of this thing, which is scary territory for people to think about, where that is where it can get to be very businesslike. And if stuff does not go right, then all of a sudden Otro Capital, who owns now some of Utah athletics, even if it's a small percentage, maybe gets more of a percentage and more of a say or more influence or whatever. And that's all very much either going on in the case of Utah, where they're in the early stages of setting this all up and their own little side company for entertainment and all these things, or they're still kicking the tires and way down the road like the Big 12 and Redbird Capital has been for a couple of years now, or it's something that the freaking league office is working on behind the backs of schools, like in the Big 10, until Michigan and USC put their foot down and said, no, wait, pal, but we're putting a stop to this. It's very interesting when you get into that part of it. I know most people just care about Heisman Trophy winners and rosters, and that's really what I ultimately care about as well. But that all is still affected to some degree by this other stuff. And so looking at it from that vantage point, I've been able to enjoy at least learning about some of these things a bit more, rather than going, ooh, gross, get out of my college football. Well, it's not going to get out of college football, so I might as well learn to at least understand why it's interesting for some people out there. Yeah, and Matt does a great job of helping explain a lot of that stuff. Yeah,
he's got all those Freedom of Information Acts and much more. He is constantly busy. It's a great newsletter if you don't get it. Now, coming up, we're going to look as a large chunk of spring games. We'll have a graphic that shows each one, the four major conferences, and maybe a note or two on a few of them. And then also Josh McCuistion, Soonerscoop.com, and the Owen Heineke ruling yesterday, and what that means besides having a potential all-conference or all-SEC linebacker who was who was it that said he was it was Zach Barnett, that he was projected to be maybe a fourth-round pick in the draft this weekend had he not gotten the extra year of eligibility. That and more. We do appreciate your time. This is 365 Sports. Have you heard of the new IRA, Insured Retirement Advantage at North Star Funding Partners? The Insured Retirement Advantage, a smarter way for you to help and you and your family, or you personally, achieve your savings and retirement goals, as it will help you do the following: maintain liquidity for other investments or business needs, protect your family, and in the long term, transfer wealth efficiently, create a supplemental tax-free income stream. It's a unique solution for clients who are financially strong, make a minimum of $150,000 annually, but have not yet achieved the savings and retirement goals that you want. So why not go to the experts who have been in business for decades and do just that? In fact, it's their new IRA, Insured Retirement Advantage. 623-256-6902 is the number, but If it's easier to remember, just NorthstarFundingPartners.com and tell them Smokey and The Smoke Show and 365 Sports sent you.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio, this is 365 Sports. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
Just a quick college football nugget, and then we're going to go up to the graphic. I noticed today that Colorado Buffaloes announced that Jeff Crawford and his wife, Orsi, committed $6 million to support Colorado athletics through the Crawford Family Foundation. I saw a note from Dion, from the new AD, as $6 million headed, I don't know to what, but involved in athletics at Colorado.
Did not get into where that's going. I'm looking right here real quick.
I didn't see that when I saw. I was packing up stuff to get to the studio, printed out the story real quick, or at least a part of it.
Okay, well, based on the story, it looks like half of the gift will go to the AD's discretionary fund, which is being renamed the George Family Athletic Directors Fund, which supports the greatest needs of CU athletics, from top caliber coaching support to star athlete identification and retention. So NIL provides the AD with flexibility to support student athletes in the evolving landscape. I see these same terms used over and over again. These uncertain times. So yeah, that's at least part of it. and it's being renamed to honor and build upon the legacy of AD Emeritus Rick George, who's stepping down after 13 years. So anyways, I mean, yeah, that's nice for them. They're getting more money and getting more stuff set up to try and help their student athletes and their coaches do the best job they can, like every other school in America. So yeah, that's $6 million they didn't have, and that's good. And we'll see how Colorado looks this year. I mean, I don't go around looking at a lot of other opinions when it comes to like thoughts that I have for next season. I just kind of hold those. I'd say I'm on this show or on the smoke breaks or whatever, but I don't go out and be like, I have this opinion on Colorado. What does everybody else think about Colorado? Because I just don't want it to like taint my opinion. You know, I'll go listen to interviews and stuff, but I don't like seek out that kind of opinion. And even still, without like going out and searching for it, I have seen a couple of headlines come across my internet searching over the last couple of weeks. And I'm definitely not alone in the pessimism about Colorado next year. I'm also not with everybody, because I still see some that feel like they could really have a good year this year, that they're really excited about their transfers they got, and they did get some good players. They had a nicely ranked transfer class. That's not debatable. They did have a good haul as far as those things are measured. And so if Julian Lewis is able to make a big step, and these guys they brought in pay off, if this new DC is better than we expect, Chris Marv, or if Brennan Marion really is just this game-changing offensive coordinator, then yeah, things could break their way. But I'm very interested. I do feel like we're at an inflection point with Deion, where I just don't expect him to be around another 5 years. And maybe he is. Maybe he is. We've been waiting for him. There was a lot of people, not myself in this case, but there was a lot of people who didn't think he'd be here this year, who didn't think he'd maybe even be there last year. Once his sons and Travis Hunter left, there was a lot of people that expected him to be gone. And then last year, because of the health issues, I think we talked a little bit about that, but he's still around and kicking. And so I'm open-minded to Colorado. I am leaning pessimistic on what they actually do, but always good to have more money in any way, shape, or form, basically, and certainly when you're trying to put a football team together.
Yeah, there would not have surprised me if he would have left after a year or two, and I think a lot of people thought he was going to go get a quick hit with the star players, including obviously Travis Hunter and Shedeur, et cetera, but he's there, and now you wonder how much longer, and I hope he has at least a year where he can get them to a bowl game, have a calm year, because another year where they're not even really in the conversation, I don't know how much that would. He seems to love Colorado, and I think he does. It's kind of fish out of water because he was from Florida, but at the same time, I do hope that I'd like to see him win. I really would. I'm not talking like win big, but just win and stay around.
A lot of people are like, no,
I know.
I don't want to see that.
I know.
I don't know what his options are as far as a coaching jump would be. Like, he could clearly still do TV whenever he wanted, if he so chose. He can do his podcast, but would he have the opportunities to go elsewhere? And based off of like what exactly would Georgia Tech, and that's the most random team, I just like literally the first team that came to mind. It might not make any sense, but like if somebody wanted him, like a Georgia Tech, like what would be the allure outside of it just being Deion? Like, because he hasn't proven a whole lot as far as he's a really good coach that wins no matter what. Like, they've had a couple of great moments, a Heisman Trophy winner. You can't shake a stick at that. But last year was a really big step backward. So now I think this year is one of those like, all right, now prove you can put it together, but you can put it together without Travis Hunter and someone named Sanders at the most important position for you offensively. So yeah, he's got his work cut out for him. I know Vegas isn't high on them either. I think they had him at like a 3-win total, if I remember when I last looked on there. So they're either going to surprise a bunch of people and Deion's going to quiet a lot of haters, or it's going to be kind of what we expected. And they are an example of when we've been talking about like these private investments and whatnot. They had that rogue booster that went over and talked to the Saudis without telling anybody to get like $10 million. What the hell's $10 million going to do? If you're going to the Saudis, add a zero, buddy. Like, $10 million, it's like not even a full year of Shedeur and Travis. Like, I don't know what that was going to accomplish, but they are somebody that if you look at them with Deion, if they make the wrong investment move and leverage the future, and then Deion decides he's leaving, Well, that's a much different looking Colorado suddenly having to pay back all this money, and that's where these things you got to be really careful with your decision making.
I'd like to know, and I can never get the Colorado AD on Rick George, and now the new one. What is now, since he arrived, with all the attendance and what they've had, although that's starting to fade a little bit, how much did they make during the time he's been there? How much when it comes to merchandise? How much when it comes to ticket sales? And even some eyeballs, which you can't really put much on that, but they, of course, have brought some eyeballs too.
I think he's raised a lot more money and probably brought in a lot more money, and people who typically wouldn't donate to Colorado, I would think, in some cases, donated to Colorado. But I also think he's probably making more than some of the previous coaches, and his staff, in some cases, are making more than previous coordinators. And so I don't know if that all balances out, but yeah, he's definitely brought them a lot of attention and a lot of money.
All right, we're going to have Josh McCuistion in a minute, but here's a graphic of the spring games. Craig sent this to me from earlier to kind of just checklist it. I don't have much interest in, it's not that if it's not on tomorrow or I get to watch it. So many of these things have changed because of the transfer portal, even though that's changed too. Obviously, Cincinnati has been moved indoors, but the SEC, you have A&M, A&M, UT, OU, Georgia, and then also Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Auburn. From the Big 12, Texas Tech and Houston. Houston's, of course, has been moved too because of the field.
Texas Tech is like starting here pretty soon.
Yeah, it's
they're tonight.
Yeah, they're Kim and what is it? Our late Katie Rader are probably there. Houston, West Virginia, Utah. Then you end with the Scally, Cal, Virginia Tech in the ACC, and a couple of bangers like you see in the SEC too with Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah, and this isn't a complete list because there are some others that I left off. Like, for example, Michigan State's also this weekend in the Big Ten. Let's see. There was a couple of others that I didn't add onto that list. In the Big 12, Oklahoma State's also this weekend.
Whoa. You have to include them, all right?
Well, like I said, I didn't know we were doing a graphic or else I would have made sure we had every single one on there. But, yeah, Oklahoma State is also this weekend.
Wet blanket's going to be so cool.
Let's see. Is Auburn on this list?
Yeah.
Okay, they are at the end of it. But, yeah, there's a couple here and there that are actually also this weekend, like in Oklahoma State. So if you're into that sort of thing, there's 20-plus different games that'll be having a beat reporter somewhere in some stadium giving you little tidbits and nuggets on everything from Auburn to Utah State to Grambling and all the teams that play this weekend. So last weekend, there was a bunch of games, and we got the Keelan Russell discussion hyped up a bit more. There will probably be something along those lines this weekend as well. Maybe Cam Coleman has a massive spring game and just further pours gas on his Biletnikoff preseason discussion at Texas or something like that happens. But yeah, there's a bunch of them. And then next weekend, there's a bunch more. And then I think that's when we'll start to see it sort of wind down. There will still be some more games to come after that. But yeah, by less than a month from now, by the end of the next 3 weeks, all that will be wrapped up. But this weekend and next weekend, jam-packed with games. So a lot to offer if you're just looking for little tidbits that'll be rolling out of these things.
All right, so we have him, Rex. Thank you very much. I look forward to it. I just look forward to maybe a couple of the summaries, maybe a note or two. I looked at the summary from last week. I think Pete Nakos put up some on 5 or 6, like the Keelan Russell note from Alabama and a few others as well. Josh McCuistion, Soonerscoop.com, joins us on 365 Sport. Josh, thank you very much with Craig and David Smoke, the Smoke Show on 365 Sports. What was it? A sigh of relief? Was it a fist pump? What was it when the Owen Heineke decision and ruling came down?
Well, it's perfectly tied into what you guys are talking about, where, spring practices and those sort of things. Oklahoma last year kind of has run a two-man job at what they call their cheetah position, which has just been it's kind of like a hybrid, like a nickel, and they have a kind of defensive back type of player, and they have a linebacker. Well, the linebacker actually went down. He tore up his knee during spring practice. So there's kind of been this conversation of, well, who's going to fill that role? Who would be that guy? And we kind of thought it might be Heineke if this was allowed, if this injunction was in place. But the the thing we kind of learned yesterday is it actually might be Michigan transfer Cole Sullivan, who's like 6'4", 220. So he's going to be a massive nickel. So that's just so again, I think it is more than just like having his experience, because I think Owen Heineke is probably going to be the green dot guy for this defense. I think he'll probably run Mike and be the play caller. But to have the linebacking room went from so much depth, so much experience, to really one guy coming back that has played meaningful football and really knows if Owen didn't return. But now it really kind of shakes up that room and kind of gives Oklahoma really experience at every level that they're looking for.
So, Josh, I've been tracking a lot of these eligibility cases, and I know some people are just sort of hard and fast on, hey, you get this and you get that, and that's something the NCAA is talking about. But this was really unique with the whole lacrosse situation, and just if you're just looking like common sense, it didn't make sense to penalize him. But I know, like, by the letter of the law, why others feel differently. But this just seems like common sense won out in the end. How did you feel about it?
First off, before I answer that, I have to tell you, you have a striking resemblance to Baker Mayfield when you talk. Like it, like I almost to the point I'm like, that is he wearing a 6 jersey? Like I have to remind myself of it.
Wow.
But no, it is striking when I hear you talk. But anyway, with his case, it is interesting because this is a situation where if he had played at Ohio State, for those who don't know, like you mentioned, played lacrosse. He played like minutes, like not games, like he played minutes, like very, very little. And it was kind of a situation where he did that because he'd suffered an injury during high school, didn't really get recruited in the way he wanted to, right? That most people felt he would have, and kind of ended up going the lacrosse route because he thought that was his best option. Spent a year up there, thought better about it, came back to Oklahoma and really earned his way through. I mean, this is a walk-on's walk-on here, so there's absolutely a lot of nuance to this. Like, and again, I'm not one of those ones that think the NCAA didn't have a valid case. Like, I understand what they were arguing. I do. It's a different sport. It's all these things. But I thought during the hearing yesterday, OU's compliance guy, and I'm gonna blank on his name, so just forgive me, but he brought up a case that at no point had the NCAA really documented through it. Like, and it was a very comparable situation. And that, to me, and even when Judge Balkman issued his ruling, I thought he kind of leaned on that a little bit, is like, this was important. You guys should have had this. This should have been discussed, and it never really was.
Yeah, I noticed. I mentioned that yesterday when the ruling came down, that there was a female athlete.
Nalani lied.
And it wasn't available. And you wonder, did they not make it available, or did somebody not do enough homework, whether it was an intern or someone like that, to find that case? And I think that annoyed the judge.
That was the impression I got. And again, I thought both from everything I gather. Again, I won't pretend I was sitting in the room, but everything I talked to, our guy George Stoyle was there all day. He went through everything and was sending us a lot of feedback. Yeah, he did an incredible job. And it sounded like that was maybe the one real thing that maybe swung this, because even after closing arguments, George was kind of messaging us and just saying, like, I don't know. This is close. Both sides have a good case. It wasn't a deal where, oh, this is so open and shut. And even, talking to Owen Heineke's attorneys afterward, like one of them, I don't know if you guys know this, Woody Glass was one of the serving attorneys on his I guess not, I keep wanting to say defense, but that's not the way that is, on his behalf. And he was Oklahoma's like director of football ops the last 4 years under Brent. Like, he is close friends with Brent Venables. And so he had a lot of insight into all of that. And they weren't overly confident. Like, it's not to say they didn't think they had a winning case, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, there's no way this could go against us.
So, Josh, the spring game coming up this weekend. I guess before we get into the details, how has spring coverage changed for you over the years? How do you sort of view it now versus maybe the way we viewed it 5 years ago?
Well, I still remember the days of like in the 2000s, the early 2010s, where you could just go to any practice you wanted to in Norman, and you just hang out and watch and take in whatever you wanted to. And I hate to say that I was kind of part of getting some of that closed down. I took too many notes. Some things got on the internet. We upset some people. So not really my fault per se, but there were some errors in communication. Right. But I will say from a OU perspective, I don't think there's been a greater change from the beat than going from Lincoln Riley to Brent Venables than in the spring. Brent allows so much great access. Like, before spring practice, every newcomer is made available at a like kind of a media luncheon type of thing where you can go talk to all the new freshmen, you can talk to the transfer portal guys, you can talk to everybody that's new. And that's just a cool thing that he does. He doesn't have to do it. And it's really great. And he even made, through spring practice, a couple of the freshmen available. Bo Bentley from Salina was one of the guys we got to talk to. So it's been like, it got so dark under Riley. Like, you got nothing. Like, everything you did, you had to scrounge for, you had to fight for. And I know a lot of beats are still living that life. Like, I fully get it. But Brent during the spring is really good to us and allows us to do some video. And we, for those that don't know, we do a lot of YouTube video content and that kind of stuff. So that's really huge for us and something we're appreciative of.
Yeah. Spring has changed for a lot. I used to be like locked into every practice and locked in, couldn't wait to be at the spring game and like tweet my ass off during the, like, oh, there's a pay. It was different, and it is changed. And so if it's changed for us, you can imagine what it's changed for coaching staffs too.
They got to hide their players now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know about you guys, but I felt like this spring, because of that, the lack of the spring portal, it felt like coaches, like, they were down about 2 degrees. Like, just still like spring ball, we got to get things ready. They're stressing about all the same things that are normal, but they didn't have that. If I talk too nicely about this wide receiver or this offensive lineman or whatever, that guy's going to end up in the portal, and I'm going to have to play him next year. Like, there was none of that. And so I thought that was refreshing. It was just something we haven't had to see. And frankly, it's good for these coaches. Guys, we've all heard the stories of guys just kind of at their wits' end with all of this and having to juggle all of this all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely think it took an edge off and allowed them to just relax a little bit and not be paranoid all the time about having to protect their team. So, Josh, playoff appearance last year, a season that kind of went a lot of different ways, but ultimately a success, and a year where Brent Venables is arguably on a hot seat to where we're like, no, now I think, like, yeah, this is the dude. Let's roll with it. Mateer's back. Arbuckle's back. What's the theme of just the Sooners kind of at this point in your mind? What is like top of mind in regards to Oklahoma football?
Well, you tied this together perfectly with Brent, Arbuckle, and the playoff. At the post game of that Alabama loss, the first thing, maybe not the first thing, but like among his bullet points in that press conference was, we need to run the ball better. We've got to be better running the ball, because that was Oklahoma just could not keep any balance. And as early in the year, they could do it with John Mateer, and he kind of bought them some leeway, but they never really found a way to get their traditional running game going. And that has been a clear focus. They brought in a Marion Harris from Arkansas, a guy with like 25 career starts. He's probably going to be the starting right tackle. They've kicked in Ryan Foje, a really talented guy that I think they would have been comfortable starting at right tackle. I think he's going to play right guard. Michael Fasusi is one of the most talented young offensive linemen in the country and has had a spring that, you talk to some people and they're like, he might be the best player on the field. Like, I mean, he's really impressed some people. And you consider, guys like Isaiah Satania that was first team all SEC. Taylor Wine was, a top 5 guy in tackles for loss in the league last year. I mean, they've got some really good returning talent. And there's actually absolutely some people that think Fasusi is as good as anybody they've got. So the pieces are there. But we've seen this. I mean, everybody talks about Bill Bedenbaugh, and rightfully so. I just couldn't respect what he does and how he's worked some of these offensive lines. But the last few years have been pretty tough for OU. They need to find that, or they've got to figure out why it's not working. You can't have a bad rushing offense, frankly, the last 3 years and to have that be satisfactory.
Yeah, it was bad. It was hard to watch. It really. I mean, how the hell does Oklahoma not have running backs? And a lot of it, of course, could be the offensive line, as you mentioned, or this and that. But How do they not have dudes? They should have 3 of them on the – and they got the kid from Longview who's a hell of a player among others. It's hard to imagine that he can't run the football.
That's been the thing. And, for those that, for some that might have missed it, DeMarco Murray, the longtime running backs coach, was a guy that was a holdover from Riley's staff. He is off to the NFL. He's going to go coach running backs for the Chiefs. And they hired Dylan McCullough, who had been at Notre Dame, was actually with the Raiders last year as a running backs coach. So a guy that has a lot of credibility, actually was the guy that recruited Jeremiah Love to Notre Dame. So pretty good thing to have on your resume at this point in time. But I don't think there's any question. They have not done a great job with evaluations and development. I mean, when they have landed elite guys, like you mentioned, Taylor Tatum didn't do anything. He had fumbling problems, looked like he had confidence issues. They went in the portal last year and got Jaden Ott, who was, I think, everybody's number 1 running back in the portal. And he and DeMarco Murray could just not get on the same page. It never happened. So I think it's probably a fresh start for everybody. And again, to me, I don't know if they're going to have a superstar at that position this year, but Jonathan Hatton, the freshman from Cibolo Steel, they really like him. He's had a really good spring. OU's 2 veteran guys, Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson, have been injured. So they nothing serious, but just nothing that would force OU to put them on the field in the spring. I think they're just being careful. And so Jonathan Hatton and another freshman, DeZephan Walker, have gotten a lot of snaps. And it sounds like Hatton is absolutely kind of putting his hat in the ring there to be a guy. And he's 6 foot, 215, legit like 10, probably 700 meter type of guy. Really, a lot of the physical tools you're looking for. And so I think that is a guy to definitely watch. And I think the biggest thing when you talk about OU's run game is the tight end room, where they had to start a converted linebacker in Jaron Canick, who did a nice job for them, all things considered. But he was a 6'2", 225-pound former linebacker playing tight end and doing it strictly as a flexed out, really kind of more of a slot guy than anything else. So I think this year they've added a lot of size with Rocky Beers. They went and got Hayden Hansen, who's like 6'7 3/4, like 265. They're going to be better on the edge this year, and they've got to be. But I think there are signs to indicate that it can be better this year.
Josh, before you go, I need to ask you about the quarterback. Injury obviously played a factor in Mateer's play, at least towards the end of the season. But also, I think you saw a guy who was just, there's live fire, and he didn't always have an answer. And he also, if you watched him at Washington State, was a guy who's going to make some turnovers because he's trying to make the crazy play happen. So it's like a give and take with, that's just his style of play. Kind of what were your thoughts on just seeing him in year one, and how much do you chalk up to injury? How much do you chalk up to needing to polish his game? Like, what is the areas they're working on with him, and why do you expect him to be maybe a better, different type of player this year?
Well, there's been a ton of talk, he's changed his mechanics and that's gotten better. And I mean, again, that's great. I think that's a good thing. I didn't struggle as much with John Mateer's accuracy as I did his decision-making. He would, people can go back to that Texas game and they're like, oh, they've got Mateer flummoxed here. Guys, there was open receivers running that Texas secondary and he wasn't seeing them. And so there's a part of me that's like, do you fix that in year 5 with the same coaching you've had the whole time? Obviously everybody knows Arbuckle, but OU's quarterback, Arbuckle's not actually OU's quarterback's coach. It's a guy named John Kuzieski that came with Arbuckle from Washington State. So John's had all this continuity that he's worked with, and obviously he'll get better and he'll know these receivers better. And so I do think that, but I think what you've got to do is not make it to where John Mateer's got to throw 35 times a game for you to win, because I don't think against really good opponents like like the guys that OU is going to see, the Georgias, the Texases, the A&Ms, like the really good teams and really good defensive minds that they're going to go against, I don't think you can let him throw 35 times a game and win. I think you've got to have balance, and I think that they've known it. So I think they're trying to plan for the right thing. But again, the idea that like, oh, it was all the injury, I just don't buy that. I never have.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. It's a lot of just what I saw at Wazoo. Like he makes some poor decisions and he's a little bit reckless, and that's just kind of part of his game. And he has trouble reading defenses.
The
like
pick to Alabama, the Alabama game, that flipped the script. That was a deadly throw, deadly mistake, deadly read, everything.
Well, and you look back on that game, and there's a part of me that says, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's as bad an interception as you can throw. At the same time, OU was all over Alabama, and if they don't drop that deep ball on that 3rd and long, Xavier Robinson just drops it wide open. He probably walks into the end zone there. And OU goes up 24-0. I don't know if Alabama comes back from that. With where they were, where that team was, I don't know. And so that was, to me, that was the issue. When OU got, like, when they'd lose momentum or they'd get off schedule, they could not get off the mat last year. They could never figure it out, and they just got lost.
Yeah, they weren't ready yet. That took a step up last year, and you wonder if they just tighten up a couple of things. I don't know if they're capable of being in that top 4 or so, but OU fans are ready for that. And we discussed it when they decided to join the SEC, that are they ready to be 8-4 more than they are 10-2 and 11-1?
That is, there's no question OU fans are not ready for that. They don't like that thought. And the thing that I think that it was coming from two sides. There were people that thought OU was going to come in and just be 6-6. I'm like, this is Oklahoma. Like you've got to have a little understanding of what OU is. At the same time, OU fans, I was talking to them being like, you've got to understand what the SEC is. This is a meat grinder, and it's only become more so in the last few years where, guys, I mean, you look at that Tennessee team, like last year, there's a lot of leagues that Tennessee would have made the playoff last year, and they were just a 7th or 8th place team in the league. They weren't anywhere. And again, it's a tough thing. And even me as a guy who loves college football, loves to watch, games across the country, Saturday is like a holy day for me.
Yep.
For that to be the case, and still once you get into SEC play, you're like, oh man, this is deeper water than even I realize. Like, because I know these OU guys, I'm so familiar with them, and to see them struggle, you're like, man, it's better talent across the board than I realized.
Well, at least they got an easy schedule this year, Josh. Oh wait, Michigan, Georgia, and Texas in the first 5 weeks of the year is pretty crazy.
If you can come out of that, God, even 3-2, I don't think you're that pissed off. I think you can do something from there, but you've just got to avoid just going nuclear. I think, to me, and it's not unlike last year where you're like, OU's got to win that Michigan game. OU's got to find a way to win in Ann Arbor, because Georgia, man, you hope. Like, maybe there's a 20% shot, but that's a long shot. And Texas, again, Texas is going to be really good. But there's a lot left to be decided there.
Yeah.
A long way to go to get there, too. Josh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. George Stoya did a great job. The third did a great job at that Owen Heineke ruling and hearing along the way. It's like he was almost, what do they call the person that
court reporter?
Court reporter. He really was, like, literally. He did a great job.
Yeah, he heard from some of the legal staff, and we were asking if they had, offered him some sort of job. We were concerned we might lose him.
Yeah, so. He could do that. Absolutely. Thank you, Josh McCuistion, Soonerscoop.com, on many things Sooners. And as I showed you the list, we looked at it, the graphic of a lot of bangers in the SEC are playing coming up this week. OU, Texas, A&M, Georgia, Auburn, and even though they've been in a funk, and a few others like Vanderbilt and Kentucky too.
Yeah, Oklahoma next year. I mean, it's a little early to start walking down the pathway. I mean, I know there's already probably a lot of predictions and things being made, but at Ann Arbor, at Michigan in week 2, at Georgia in week 4, and then get a bye before the big game in Dallas against Texas. So outside of that, UTEP and New Mexico, you should be certain that you're going to win 2 games, but there's a very real chance you could be like 2-3 by the middle of October if you aren't able to win those big ones. So yeah, at Michigan, at Georgia, Texas neutral site, all in the first 5-6 weeks of the season is pretty crazy, but that's what you signed up for. So I'd expect a pretty good team. Don't know if they're going to be back in the playoff. I think they'll be firmly in the mix, and it will all just depend on areas like the run game and how much they were able to improve that, because as Josh talked about and was right about, this is Oklahoma. He's running back. Like, we got not just a guy, we got a couple guys pretty much every year, and Adrian Peterson and DeMarco Murray and just guy after guy after guy. And here of late, they've not been able to tote the rock, and that's not something that's going to win you very many big time games or championships.
Well, it's what also hurt their number one rival last year, with Texas not being able to run the ball until that second half against A&M, and then of course in the game in the bowl game. All right, when we come back, we're going to look. The NFL draft is next Thursday. We have discussed it with analysts. We've even had some NFL draft prospects on. We're going to look at what Field Yates has. He did his top 150 and kind of glanced at the top 10 and discussed some of the names and more we have around the corner of the wheel, with Andrew Valet doing what he does every day, plus the poll results that he's put up throughout the show. And yes, quizzes. We'll do that too. Rez, Logan, Andrew, Garrett, running the mothership. This is 365 Sports. QC Kinetics in Dallas and Houston, and I have been there. My first treatment was in September, and it has worked. After kicking the can down the road many different times with steroid injections, whether it's in my waist, my back, I just thought, okay, maybe this will work. I did not know why my hip hurt. There's no structural damage. Sometimes a nerve can flare that up, or maybe just something gristly in your back can flare. I finally went to QC Kinetics, sort of a good friend of mine promoting it, because he used to have issues with his elbows and could not squeeze a water bottle with the loose top and pop the top off. It was bad. So when I played golf, there was a tug. If I even thought about running about 3 jog steps into it, I stopped. It was miserable. Get out of bed, sore, miserable. Tugging, sore, achy. It's gone. QC Kinetics will take what is inside of your body, your natural biologics, spin it, plasma, platelets, stem cells, and put it back inside of your body, and you will be healed. It worked for me, and it can work for you. So if you've had all of the other stuff, including maybe even some sort of medicine, pills popping and all that, give them a shot. Free consultation. There's the number in Dallas, 972-972-8610. And in Houston, 713-913-5285. QC Kinetics. You've seen the commercials with Roger Clemens. Yeah, he's an old retired baseball player, but his aches and pains are real. QC Kinetics in Dallas and Houston. Let them use your natural biologics to heal you. It works at QCkinetics.com. It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Declaration of Deals is at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. And America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels in Waco.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
Here we go, 365 Sports. One note, I thought this was kind of a funny story. So Jackson Njigba Smith, Smith and Jigba, excuse me, from Ohio State, now with the world champion Seattle Seahawks. The director of equipment with the Seahawks was talking about the support they get from the administration, ownership, from John Schneider, the GM, and others, and that they don't miss, like they go tooth in comb, like through a haystack looking for a needle, to how you can make every player just more healthier and even more efficient. Listen to this story about Jackson Smith and Jigba and his cleat size and how it helped get rid of something that was bothering him.
They hear equipment manager, so they think you're just carrying a helmet and pads and all that. But, I mean, take people through what it is you do and what, as John says, makes you the best at it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the freedoms, right? Like we've been very fortunate with John and Mike now jumping in there of giving us opportunity to grow, right? Like chasing edges and finding new things. And you're always trying to find little edges that can help players. And you know, from, let's just say, Jackson Smith and Jigba, you were talking about in college, he was wearing a size 12, had hamstring issues and things like that. Gets here, he's a 10.5. Where's the 10.5? Where's what he's doing? Obviously, with all the things Sammy and the medical staff and all those people are doing, it's a collective group. And I think it's been a big part for us working together, but it's helped him, right? He hasn't missed time and done things like that. And that helps build the trust for us with the players. Like, about the last 15 years, we've been able to do some foot scanning and things like that. So when you break into our world, first in the NFL, and that's because of his relationship at Nike and
the foot scanning you're talking about.
And then you know all the helmets and
so there's the audio clip. He was wearing a size 12 shoe, and he should have been using a 10.5. And I know what that's like. If you wear a shoe that's too large, sometimes you end up getting blisters, etc. But I would think it would be worse if you needed a 12 and you were wearing a 10.5, because then the blood circulation or whatever.
Well, the blood circulation is also going to be blisters when you have shoes that are too tight, not too loose. I think with too loose, the foot's rattling around a little bit in that. But I would think the blisters would be worse if you had the smaller shoe on. But regardless, it's not ideal and can give you problems. And you're clearly not operating at your maximum, most efficient and best. This is something I'd heard about Adidas with all of the prospects they've been signing in football recently. Actually brought all their guys, like, this was months ago. So I don't know who did it first, if it was Nike or Adidas, but I heard about it from Adidas first. And the players that were involved were saying, we've never seen anything like this. But they invited all their, I guess, big-time football. I can't remember if it was rookies or if it was guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, like they're already signed NFL guys. But regardless, they had a bunch of dudes come over to their headquarters and they gave them custom foot scans and custom shoes and all the rest of that. So yeah, that's all the rage now is that's what the shoe companies are doing is using technology to even just slightly improve things. And in this case, greatly improved Jackson Smith and Jigba's health because, he was dealing with hamstring issues all the time. And apparently he got his shoes switched out and he's no longer dealing with hamstring issues and hasn't had a problem with them. So, I think you could attribute that to the shoe size because I'm not sure what else was notably changed on his part. But it's really cool that they have the technology to do that. And I bet that felt like the Cinderella's glass slipper when he put it on and ran around in it for the first time. I can only imagine what a difference that would have made on just how everything feels planting your foot in the ground and making cuts and all that, rather than your shoe kind of sliding, or maybe you're tying it so tight so that it doesn't slide. But I think that's probably more common than people think is not knowing your shoe size exactly, because you might just have gotten something, you're like, well, this fits, and you don't realize that it's a half inch too long or that it should be a half inch larger. Like, I know you kind of got to put your thumb at the end of it, But I've done that before. That still doesn't always work because there's different types of fronts of shoes.
And there's width of your foot
right.
as well.
So, yeah, I mean, that's really cool that technology is able to help him and probably a lot of others. It's also goofy that he didn't know his shoe size. But, again, I think you probably just got some shoes at one point. You're like, these work, and you just never looked back and didn't realize what a mistake you were making.
Before we get to the top 10, the Phil Yates from ESPN NFL draft analyst, this is a story about Jordan Tyson of Arizona State, who's highly thought of but has had issues with injuries. But I saw this from Peter Schrager, the NFL Network. 18 teams today were supposed to be at a workout for Jordan Tyson. Significant workout session with a massive turnout less than a week before the draft. You don't see that many people usually at something like that unless it's a pro day on campus or somewhere, or, of course, at the Combine. So that was the Arizona State wide receiver, highly thought of. In fact, Rick Serratelli, who was on with us, and John Cooper both talked about him, raved about him. One of them had him like fifth best player in the draft, but will be a first-round pick.
Yeah, I've seen him mocked pretty highly, but there are question marks that are causing him to slip a little bit, like his health, as you point out there. And it appears, based on what I saw in the follow-up from, I guess this would have been Pete Thamel a little while ago, that he showed the twitch, explosiveness, and leaping ability we all saw in the fall. He showed he's healthy and still explosive, which is all he needed to do. So that was a source to Pete Thamel. And the couple of teams that are apparently real interested in him, Miami and New York, they pick at 5 and at 11. So there's a possibility that he's off the board pretty damn quickly next Saturday. And that'd be great news for Jordan Tyson, great news for Kenny Dillingham and ASU to be able to promote that. But, yeah, he's definitely a first-rounder. It's just a matter of how high he's going to go. But it looks like he did everything that he needed to do to show scouts that he's good to go. And I don't like to on-air produce. I almost feel like we should hold back on the Field Yates, because that's a deeper discussion rather than trying to squeeze it in. Yeah.
Let's do the
There's the stadium upgrades that are ongoing right now.
Hold on. Let's do let's go. We're not going to have the pictures, but Jordan Hare, Auburn. You have Nebraska again with a $600 million facelift from Memorial Stadium. And as you still see more and more money, there's still plenty of money to try to improve the stadiums and add to them.
Yeah, I mean, a couple big projects announced for those two schools, Auburn and Nebraska, hundreds of millions of dollars going into their stadium renovations. And I think the first thing I see from most fans, is it increasing capacity? I don't know about in Nebraska's case. I know that in Oklahoma's it actually took away, I believe, when they did theirs. I believe for Auburn it's going to remain about where it was. But a lot of people, of course, they want to be able to say, oh, we got 90,000 or we got 100,000 or whatever. But with some of these projects, you're reconfiguring end zones and whatnot, but you're also adding more stuff into it, like suites or whatever. It's not just more seats. So I don't think it's going to increase the capacity as far as Auburn goes, based on what I was reading earlier. But yeah, there is. Let me see where that was. I had a tab on that just a little bit earlier. Where's the college football tab on ESPN? Okay, there it goes. Nebraska, $600 million for their stadium renovation for 2028. Auburn approving $323 million. And from the story about it, Nebraska's Memorial Stadium, 103 years old. They're going to make it more fan-friendly, increase revenue, of course. Why else are you doing this? But just for the fans and to be friendly, right? No, for the increased revenue. But the Big Red Rebuild is what they're calling it. Will be funded by a mix of $250 million in philanthropic support, $350 million in private bond financing, with the completion set for the start of 2028. Capacity looks like would be 80,000. What is it right now?
I thought it went down recently. I want to say 75.
Okay, so it looks like they may have a little bit more capacity that they'll be adding in. I know on Auburn's it said that theirs would be about the same. So that would be a decrease. They're at 85. So again, there's another example of these stadium projects actually taking away some seats. And then Auburn's not spending quite that much, but spending a hell of a lot of money, and they'll be doing all sorts of additions, multi-purpose centers and entertainment and things like that. So a lot of premium seats is the thing nowadays, is the higher ticket prices, but the premium selections for people to be persuaded into paying the higher ticket prices. So I'm sure it'll all look really cool. The mock-ups for both of them look great. I was definitely wrong on thinking that. I didn't think the facilities thing was going to shut down and that people weren't going to upkeep their facilities. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still there all the time or playing there every year. So those still need to be as nice as possible. But I did think that maybe they'd cut back on some of that. And it felt like for a couple of years, there wasn't really a whole lot of talk about these big restructurings or big renovation projects. But now we've seen like a slew of them over the last few. I mean, Kansas had theirs ongoing. Theirs is a major, major overhaul. I know Missouri's had theirs ongoing. You could see like last season watching, I think it was the Kansas game, where there's all sorts of construction going on in the background. Northwestern's obviously moved to a new stadium by the lake, and there's a lot of facility stuff still going on. I'm not sure it's dipped at all, actually, in the long run, maybe for a brief period of time, but I think the big difference is you're just not going as extravagant. So you have waterfalls. You maybe just don't have like color changing waterfalls, and that's where you cut back a little bit.
Yeah, that's where you do it. Now, one of the big stories when we came on Monday, as we're getting ready to go to the wheel, et cetera, was the Masters and how Rory McIlroy won his second green jacket. When we had guests on the week before about Augusta National, one of what we talked about was the tickets and how Augusta National is seriously and with focus cracking down on third market or second or third or black market ticket sales. Like, for example, there's somebody that might have a family that for years and years, they get 4 tickets, 4 passes for all 4 rounds or whatever, and then they go on and sell those and make a bucket load of money. And Augusta National is starting to get tired of it. And they finally really, in the last year or two, said, okay, we're going to find a way to crack down on it. In fact, there's a house that's right across maybe the front gate or the back gate or both, in which they have brought people in to question them. Now, it's Augusta National's course. It's their tournament. They can do whatever the hell they want. They do not have to tell you if they want to pull your tickets, not just for the tournament, but for the rest of your life, your family, they can do it. So here are a couple of different examples that I found earlier this week. There's a couple of letters. The first one, listen to this letter. On behalf of the Masters Tournament Credentials Committee, we'd like to express our sincere gratitude for your past patronage and support of the Masters. As a patron of record, you are aware of and have agreed to the annual ticket agreement when series badges were purchased. This ticket agreement acknowledges that tickets are limited license, which may be revoked by Augusta at any time with or without cause at the discretion of Augusta National. Upon review of the patron list and after careful consideration, the Credentials Committee has made the decision not to renew tickets to your patron account moving forward. We recognize that this news is disappointing, and then mentioned in it as well that they will send them a rebate check for whatever it might be. Then there's the one that's a little bit more legible because it's in white. It has come to our attention that you offered 2025 Masters tickets for sale. The action was a violation of the 2025 application agreement you signed upon acceptance and purchase of tickets. Therefore, please be advised the Credentials Committee has canceled all tickets assigned to you and has permanently removed your name from all mailing lists. A refund of a couple $100 will be applied to your credit card account within 30 days. They will never, ever again get tickets, and they will never again get inside the gates of Augusta National. And they do that at professional events and some others as well, counterfeit, etc. And sometimes it's, unfortunately, it's the person at the bottom on wherever it might be that is the one that also gets stung in this as well.
I mean, I don't really know how all that process works. I know there's a lottery and everything like that. But yeah, they're trying to cut back on scalpers, I guess. I guess is the idea behind that. And not sure if that's going to be the cure-all to it or whatever else they're trying to deter. But the secondary market and scalpers, make a boatload off those. And I can understand them wanting to try to keep their tournament as traditional as possible and not have like a lot of rabble rousers and outside forces getting their way around the ticketing system because they're able to break the lottery and and get these resales and then turn around and spike those up to a ridiculous degree. So yeah, it just sounds like the Masters wanting more control of everything, and may not like it. Certainly, I bet you don't like it if you're somebody who's hoping to go one day. Then now your percentage chance of being able to go has dropped dramatically, because now really it is just the lottery that you have. But I've seen lots of people like, hey, you and 5 of your buddies all go in and put in 5 different entries and hope that you hit. But yeah, it's going to be more difficult, it sounds like, to get Masters tickets.
All right, let's spin the wheel. Andrew Valade comes up with a lot of what we do to end the show, and here it is, the wheel. All right. 3, 2. What's that? We want to take a break? All right. What color? What's the best for a sports car? I want to say red.
Yeah, I mean, red looks cool. I'd say black or silver for me.
I would take either one of those.
I think it would probably depend on the model exactly. Like some would probably be better in a red or a black, but in general, red, black, silver, I'm okay with any of those, and wouldn't have much of a desire to see. Like, I'm not a bright yellow guy or lime green or any of that kind of stuff like you see on South Beach. That's not my taste. So yeah, I'd go with red, black, or silver.
All right. So that's the wheel. We spin that at the end of each show. Now let's go to the quizzes. We are on a tremendous run with Andrew Valade coming up with this one. Angels legend, we saw this earlier, Garrett Anderson hit a legendary 3-run double in Game 7 to help his team win the first ever World Series. That's when they had the Rally Monkeys. Which team did they defeat in that 2002 Fall Classic? Would not have been
it's the
Yankees or the A's because of the fact they're in the same league.
Yeah, so it's not the Yankees or Athletics. I'm trying to remember. That was a really long time ago. I mean, I was moving on like in the midst of like high school, college transition. And so there's a lot of fuzziness going on as far as details of things go. Angels.
I'm trying to think if Bonds was still a part of that Giants, because that was after the steroid era, really the late 90s. Well,
I don't remember the Dodgers Angels being like, it doesn't ring a bell. I can kind of see Angels Giants in my head, and the Giants were on that pretty good run, which I know the Rangers World Series appearances weren't right after that, but they weren't long after that. So, okay, you're playing the music. Give me the San Francisco Giants.
And the answer is the Giants. I was leaning toward the Dodgers, but there we are in the third inning of Game 7. Anderson cleared the bases with a double that provided the winning margin, 4-1 win against the Giants. Anderson remains an Angels all-time leader in hits and runs batted in, and is remembered as the steady heartbeat of that 2002 championship squad. I read the story. There was no cause of death, at least initially reported, and he was smooth and really good. And he was, again, the hero of that World Series.
Yeah, for those who haven't read the headlines today, Garrett Anderson passed away.
Yeah.
So that's what you're referring to there. And yeah, no result or cause given, but that's what you're talking about. And he was only 53 years old. So that's really unfortunate. I'm sure we'll hear some details at some point. But yeah, he was a really good player, really, really good player. And it's just really sad to see that news.
Yeah, that surprised me, and he was not very old whatsoever. Here's quiz number 2. During the 2018 wild card game, which quarterback made history by becoming the only player in the Super Bowl era to throw a touchdown pass to himself in a playoff game?
Touchdown pass to himself. I think it was Marcus Mariota, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's one of those that popped into your mind pretty quickly. The only way you could do that
very often.
Yeah, no, it would have to be that
like
it was batted
completion.
up and he caught it. Yeah.
That popped into my head almost immediately. When was Patrick Mahomes' rookie year? That would have been.
Oh, it would have been like 16, 17 or so. Yeah.
Don't remember
17 or
Andrew Luck
18.
doing that. For some reason, I kind of think Russell Wilson
Well,
too.
Mahomes didn't play his rookie year, remember? Because it was Alex Smith.
Right, so that's what I'm trying to deduce here. And I don't really remember a Russell Wilson self-catch, so I don't know. I feel like that's
Just
Marcus
go with Mariota when you mentioned him at the beginning. There he is. Trailing 21-3 against the Chiefs. It was against Mahomes. Mariota's pass was deflected by Darrelle Revis back into his own hands, and he hauled it in, dove in for a 5-yard touchdown score, while Brad Johnson did this in 1997, a regular season game. Mariota remains the only player to pull it off in an NFL postseason game.
Yeah, I could kind of see that in my head. Big fan of Marcus Mariota going back to Oregon, and then now as the Commanders backup, and took more of a look at those uniforms yesterday. The NFL, like a lot of teams, are coming out with new uniforms. The Rams came out with new uniforms that are like, if you just looked away real quick, you'd have no idea they're different. There's like such subtle differences in the Rams uniform makeover. It's just like I would be pissed as a Rams fan if I was excited about some new uniforms and it's just the old uniforms with like a new line attached to it or something. But the Ravens have come out with some. They've got a unique kind of collection that are going to be really interesting to see out in the field. Like some of them we've kind of seen before, but there's like an all black matte helmet that Lamar Jackson was modeling that's really interesting looking. And the Ravens, I kind of found those cool, but there's others, and Washington's one of them. And there's just getting picked apart a little bit. People don't love either there's the Native American spokespeople that have come out and don't like the spear that's on the logo. But there's a very simple explanation. Be like, well, we're not referring to Native Americans, we're referring to the Romans. And you're not the only civilization that had spears. And so they can go about it that way. But beyond that kind of typical pushback when it comes to Washington fandom, there's like the spear doesn't go through the W the right way that it makes sense. So there's things that people have picked apart, but I mean, they're basically the old uniforms with a slight twist on the black uniforms, and I love them. I think they're great. I think they're way, way better than what we've seen in recent years, and a nice nod to the past, but also a nice blending of the future as well. So I'm excited to see those. I like the Ravens in parts as well. Those Rams uniforms, I mean, that was like, there are so many uniform redesigns. This is like a very minor pet peeve, but there's so many uniform redesigns where I look at it and it's like these consultants that get paid to like, take a look at our business and what would you change? And they change like the tiniest thing and they get paid $100 million for it. That's what happened with these Nike designers. It's like, hey, redesign the Rams uniforms, and you like slightly shifted the yellow and added a little something. You're like, all right, done. I'll take my massive check for this redesign now. It's maddening as a creative person to see people kind of being lazy with these things. But at least some of them have been good. The Rams, not so much. Not so much.
I'm not a uniform police, but there are some that I just think are hideous and don't make any sense whatsoever.
I'm not the police either, but I feel like if you're going to make a big deal out of redesigning uniforms, then it should look like you redesigned your uniforms. Like otherwise, what was the designer getting paid for exactly? It feels like a lot of people at Nike just kind of don't do much to anything and then present it like it's something new. So I'm not the uniform police. I just find that whole process kind of maddening that I didn't think of it first to find that type of a job where I just add a line and I go, new uniforms. There you go. But we'll see. I'm sure there's plenty of people that like them.
Let's get to the poll results. Andrew, pop these up throughout the show. Who is the better all-around cornerstone to build a dynasty around? And Luka Doncic at 42%. Cooper Flag, 58%. Luke is kind of older now. I saw where he was given a reprieve to be available to win some of the postseason awards because he had to take 2 games off to go overseas for the birth of his daughter, Slovenia.
Yeah, that's like the only time he's seen his daughter. Last report, that whole messy drama off the court that he's having to deal with. But he got an exemption because you have to play a certain amount of games to be eligible for postseason awards. So he filed, I think somebody else did as well, to get the exception, and he got it. So now he's eligible for some of those postseason awards. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm biased towards Luka, but I can also I'm not anti-Cooper Flag in any way. I definitely am not rooting for Mavericks ownership to be super successful. I don't want the franchise to crater. I don't want it to move. I just don't like the people who run it and how they've ran it up to this point, but they got that very lucky, not at all, perhaps not on the up and up, number 1 overall draft pick immediately after losing their star player that had the whole fan base cratering.
To the
Coincidence.
To the team that the NBA wanted to see get him.
Total coincidence, right? But yeah, Cooper Flag's an incredible player. He might end up being better than Luka when all is said and done. I wouldn't be surprised by that. He is very developed for a 19-year-old as far as what he's already added to his game, and he's got a really impressive bag of tricks, and he's constantly showing new things as well. So he seems like not as flashy of a player that will get you fired up like Luka, but he's also not going to bitch at the referees for 2 hours every night. So that's also kind of fun to not have that part of the Mavericks as well. But I mean, you're good either way. That's my answer to this. But Cooper Flag is a really incredible young prospect.
And yet his former teammate may win the Rookie of the Year.
I mean, he shouldn't. I mean, the Concanepal's got a great argument, but I think overall Cooper Flag's had a better rookie
I think
year.
it is like absolutely a dead heat. All right, final poll question from today. Which of these car mods is the most annoying to see or hear on the road? I liked all of these. I'm not a big car person, but ear-splitting exhaust rolls to a win ahead of neighborhood shaking bass.
That's
bass. And then also, well, there's a lot of big fish around. Dangerous truck lifts and also the fake massive spoilers.
I'm just wondering how many people I'm going to piss off in the audience if I say a particular answer. The one I'm the least fan of, and I'm not a fan of really any of these things, but I just living in Texas, you just kind of get used to all of the above. I mean, it's all attention, right? And some of it's style. Some of it is definitely you just think certain things look good. I think the size of trucks now is just ridiculous. It's not even the ones that are lifted. Like they come off the assembly line and they're 3 inches taller than they were and they're 2 inches wider and they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you put lifts on them and then you make them even bigger than the bigger trucks already are. I've noticed that more. I don't know if it's just around here or what. I had friends who had lifted trucks. I've definitely seen those, but it's like a proliferation of it going on right now where just these massive pickup trucks are all over the place, and it drives me insane because they are not the patient drivers or the drivers that are too concerned about what else is going on.
I hear the thump when you have the shaking bass
in bass?
Cars. Huh?
You mean the bass?
Yeah, the bass, the shaking bass. But I'll walk out of a convenience store and there'll be a car and it's like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. I mean, it's thumping and I'll just start dance with it. I mean, but yeah, that can be, especially in a neighborhood, you got to know where you are, but I don't think they care.
I just don't like
looking
looking
at my. It doesn't annoy me during the day.
I don't like looking in my rear view and I see the bottom of somebody's grill because the truck is so damn tall
I get it.
and 6 inches behind my bumper. Yeah.
Somebody sent me a note about the commanders and their helmets. You hear about some Native American groups that not like, they don't like it. There are a bunch that do, and you never hear much about those who think it's kind of a positive, but that's always going to be kind of a argument back and forth. Thanks to Andrew Valade and also to Garrett Ross. Thanks to Logan Begesi and Rez Flores. Thank you very much. Great job this week. We'll be back on Monday at 3 o'clock. Craig Smoke. I'm David Smoke. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to you, the viewership. And this is the Smoke Show on 365 Sports.